Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
It's Friday, January 16th, 2026. This is Spathon with tonight's episode of The Swamp. The man sitting in jail awaiting trial for Charlie Kirk's assassination was back in court this week, and his lawyers have a bizarre demand for the court, and it's in regards to the lead prosecutor. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey are officially under investigation by the Department of Justice for interfering with federal immigration operations. Speaking of Minnesota, the state has seen so many illegal immigrants deported from the state that Democrats have received a major setback with regards to the state's future influence in federal politics. Border Czar Tom Homan announced he is working to compile a public database consisting of the names of all individuals who obstruct federal agents during illegal immigrant apprehensions. Remember the $100,000 reward the FBI is offering for the individuals responsible for vandalizing federal agents' vehicles? Well, one of the suspects is now in federal custody. And Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and President Trump announced the next phase of the Gaza peace plan, which is ready for implementation. Included in the next phase will be the demilitarization of the area, which will require the full disarmament of Hamas. And President Trump participated in a rural healthcare roundtable event where they discussed the Rural Health Transformation Fund and the president's desire to send money directly to patients for their health care and not to insurance companies. And there's plenty more that happened today, so we're going to dive straight in. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like and consider subscribing to the channel if you enjoy the daily updates into our federal machine. And if you leave a comment below, I might just read it on the next episode, which will be on Monday. And every article you'll see in the video will be linked right down in the description below. And I've got this from Mario Nalfall. The Charlie Kirk shooting case just got even messier. The man accused of trying to kill Charlie Kirk is back in court today, and now his lawyers are trying to kick the prosecutor off the case. They're claiming conflict of interest, which could totally shake up the whole trial if the judge happens to agree. Basically, they're not just defending their client, they're going after the person trying to convict him. And this is on Fox News. Oh, wait, hold on. My mistake. Now we're good to go.
What to be decided is whether or not the Utah County Attorney's Office stays on this case or is thrown off completely. Now, this all goes back to this claim of a conflict of interest at the Utah County Attorney's Office. Lawyers for Tyler Robinson argue because a prosecutor's adult child was at the Turning Point USA event when Charlie Kirk was shot and killed, they can't stay impartial, therefore they should be removed. Now, according to an affidavit, the adult child, who is a student, was standing around 85 feet away when they heard a loud sound, and after people started yelling that Kirk had been shot, ran with the rest of the crowd. They then texted their family members that, quote, someone got shot and Charlie got shot. Prosecutors, though, are pushing back, saying the adult child didn't witness the actual shooting, couldn't see who fired the shots, and had no firsthand knowledge of the killing. They don't believe there is any legal or ethical conflict to force the removal of a deputy county attorney or the entire office. Former New Jersey prosecutor David Gelman isn't surprised by the defense's argument, but doesn't think it'll be successful.
They're trying to do everything they possibly can to defend their client and probably get the best resolution, maybe get the death penalty off the table. However, this is just, it's not going to fly. And it actually, what it may do is tick off the judge and the prosecutor's office, because they're just wasting the time of the judge.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it's going to piss off the judge if he sees it that way. Or they're just trying to stonewall, although I don't know why, because, you know, I think everybody can equally assume that he's going to be found easily guilty and may end up facing the death penalty. And if he's facing life in prison at a minimum without parole, you know, what's the point in stonewalling any longer? So I don't know, man, maybe just trying to throw wrenches into the system to see if they could get some like chain of custody nonsense, or who knows what they're really trying to plan. But anyway, that was in the news today. And this comes from the GOP from 9 hours ago. The RNC chair bets on secret weapon to defy midterm history, protect GOP majorities. And let me see where the article is. Here we go. Got it right here on Fox News. And RNC chair bets on secret weapon. What is this secret weapon? I don't know, but we'll find out. Exclusive Republican National Committee Chair Joe Gruder says he has one goal this year: to make sure the GOP holds its fragile House majority and narrow control of the Senate in November's midterm elections. Well, I mean, look, I know you don't want to shoot for overkill, but your main goal should be, as close to an absolute blowout as humanly possible, man. Like, anybody who's running for the House, which is every single congressional district across America, every district, no matter how deep blue they are, they need to be finding an America First candidate who can run for the GOP, as unlikely as it might even be. And, I know there'd be a whole different argument as to how much money they should put behind it. I know that's probably a logistical nightmare because of the 435 districts that are out there. So it just seems like that they just don't put enough weight. They don't put enough effort behind districts that lean further blue than just a narrow majority. But, I'm no expert on it. So anyway, making Gruder's mission more difficult. The party in power, which is clearly the Republicans right now, traditionally faces political headwinds and usually loses congressional seats in the midterms. But the RNC chair, a longtime ally of President Trump, who the president picked last summer to steer the National Party Committee, says he has a secret weapon in order to defy history and pick up seats in the 2026 elections. Quote, "I think the president of the United States is our secret weapon." Oh, come on, man. Really? He's laser focused, Gruder's touted in a national digital exclusive sit-down interview with Fox News. I mean, look, man, I thought they had some real strategy that they were able to put together like an army of young Americans who are going to go door to door. They've got them numbered by the thousands. They're in all 50 states. They're just going to be storming these blue districts. Just I don't know, man. That's what I kind of figured. I thought maybe their secret weapon should be Scott Presler. That would be a good idea. Have Scott Presler try to organize this massive initiative where they go door to door, because he's extremely effective at it. All right, pointing to Trump's unprecedented agenda during his first year back in the White House, Gruder's argued, quote, "I think it's going to pay huge dividends across the board, whether you're running for governor, Senate, House, or whether you're running for a local seat. Democrats see it differently as they spotlight Trump's underwater approval ratings and deep concerns by Americans over continued high prices," which virtually exclusively happened under the Biden administration. I don't think anything has increased in price that I'm aware of under Trump. I believe Tide laundry detergent, that's gone up, I think, 2% since Trump took office. I mean, there might be just standard staple food items that tend to increase with just the average rate of inflation. Since the inflation rate is still slightly above 2%, I guess everything in general tends to go up, but that's the way things have been going on for literally centuries at this point. But the massive bump in our inflation occurred under Biden, virtually exclusively under Biden, and a lot of it had to do with all the massive influx of illegal immigration by the tens of millions. All right, so the GOP is also dealing with low propensity issue. MAGA voters who don't always go to the polls when Trump's name isn't on the ballot, which, yeah, personally, I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Why would you just only go and vote just once every 4 years? And if it's only Trump's name that's on the ballot, that's absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, but Gruder's noted that Trump's made stops in recent weeks in 3 key midterm election battlegrounds and said that the president's going to barnstorm the country with our candidates. I think that's a brilliant idea. It's a very good idea. And it's definitely cool that he still has the energy to do that because, yeah, in the last several elections, he's been doing just that. I mean, at one point, didn't he go to 5 or 6 states in a single day? I don't believe it was in 2024. I want to say it was it might have actually been in 2020. I can't exactly remember which election it was. It might have even been 2022, but there was a time where he made 10 campaign stops in a single day. It was crazy. But anyway, he cautioned, we got to do everything right. We got to make sure we turn our voters out, and we got to make sure that we have people energized. And that's nobody that can energize our base more than President Trump. I'm telling you, man, Scott Presler, dude, that's your secret weapon. All right, Gruters, who was interviewed ahead of next week's RNC winter meeting, also argued that there's been nobody that's been more focused on affordability than President Trump. Look at gas prices, the lowest prices since 2021. Look at the egg prices. Well, the big 3 egg companies are currently under investigation for price gouging because of the whole avian flu nonsense that they were trying to peddle to us. Yeah, there really wasn't a supply shortage. They were just making all that shit up. But yeah, they're under investigation right now by the DOJ. Real pocketbook issues that impact everyday Americans the president is focused on, and he's not done. Deep concerns over inflation boosted Trump and Republicans to sweeping victories at the ballot box in 2024 as they won back the White House and Senate and keep their House majority, which of course we pretty well know that by now. But Democrats say their decisive victories in November 2025 elections and their overperformances in special elections and other ballot box showdowns last year were fueled by their laser focus on affordability. Yep, they need to keep hitting that home. Same with immigration, their efforts, because those two are interlinked. Illegal immigration by the tens of millions also caused things to increase, especially rent and utilities and so on. Quote, 1 year into a second term, Donald Trump has made one thing unmistakably clear. He doesn't care about everyday Americans. He only cares about himself and his billionaire donors. But what about Democrats and their billionaire buddies in the health insurance industry? I know that they have buddies all over the place, K Street, all the lobbyists, and the list goes on and on. Anyway, as hardworking families struggle to afford groceries, utilities, and healthcare and worry about finding a job, Trump is busy meddling in foreign countries and palling around with executives, failing to address America's top concerns on the economy, said DNC Rapid Response Director Kendall Whitmer, who argued in a statement. And pointing to November's midterm elections, Whitmer predicted voters won't forget Trump's betrayal come midterms, and Republicans will have to answer for it. What betrayal? What the fuck's he talking about? But Gruters, who was a certified public accountant, CPA, before taking over the RNC, highlighted the series of tax cuts in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, Trump's signature domestic policy achievement so far during his second term. Quote, I will tell you that people are very excited about filing their taxes this year. This should be some of the biggest refunds that anybody has gotten, he said. Yeah, and a quick comment on that. Look, every year that I do my taxes, first off, I always do it literally on the last day. I'm not doing that this year because I've always used TurboTax. They used to allow me to do TurboTax for free, and then like a year or two ago, they randomly started suckering me with like $100, and I put myself in the position where I had to pay it because I was literally filing my taxes on April 15th at like 8 o'clock at night. But this year, I'm going to get ahead of it. I don't have the name offhand, but the IRS recommended a website. It's like something USA, like tax something USA. And federal taxes, no matter how much you make, it's free no matter what. And so, I more than qualify for that because I claim like virtually nothing on my taxes. So, I don't ever get that much back to begin with. But, with what little amount that I might be getting in addition to the little amount I usually get, I'd like to at least save that $100 and have the ability to tell TurboTax to go F themselves because, they've gotten pretty shady over the last few years, to say the least. All right, so anyway, the cost of living has been a key issue at the ballot box the last couple of years, and an overwhelming majority questioned in a Fox News national poll conducted last month expressed concern about high prices. Gruters, promoting Trump's agenda, told Fox News Digital that from an affordability standpoint, I think we win hands down based on the policies this president has pushed. Well, yeah, you just got to keep hitting that home. Gruters' rival, DNC Chair Ken Martin, put it bluntly last month at the National Party's winter meeting. SHIT, sugar honey iced tea, is too expensive, Martin emphasized. Well, dude, we all lived during the Biden administration. Like 95% of us were adults during the Biden administration. We were working, paying our taxes, having to buy groceries, paying for our rent. All of it skyrocketed under Biden. Things, they started to inch upward in 2020 because the whole pandemic bullshit that we had to deal with. So, I'm not going to fully take 100% of the weight off of Trump because, there were these large COVID spending packages that he ended up signing. But of course, you could easily, credit the whole novel virus. We were being gaslit like crazy from the CDC, the NIH, the Democrats, double mask and all that nonsense that was happening. But I think the American people, by and large, they're not going to buy that. If that's and actually, who was it? It was Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries. I think it was both of them who said that their number one thing that they're going to be running on, the Democrat Party will be running on in the midterms is cost affordability. And at the time I said, I hope and pray that's what they go with. I hope they stick to that above and beyond anything else, because like I said, man, like virtually all of us, we all had to pay taxes. We all had to afford, or at least try to afford, our living during the Biden administration. And I think your average American knows damn well that everything skyrocketed, not under Trump. So if they want to try to gaslight everybody into believing that, well, Trump made everything go up like 2-3 times in cost. Everything costs so much, and houses are so expensive, and the average motor vehicle is $50,000. It's all Trump's fault in the tariffs, which can't be further from the truth. In fact, this year, the cost of a motor vehicle has actually gone down. I think it was like $500 on average or something like that. It's nominal, but still, after the Trump tariffs, including the automakers themselves, they were telling the American people that well, our vehicles are going to get really expensive because the tariffs are going to go into effect and we have to pay an extra 20% here, extra 15% there, and hasn't happened. And I think maybe perhaps it's not like completely devoid of all tariffs. Yes, tariffs are going to play a part in the automotive industry. However, they can't increase prices right now because nobody's buying new cars right now because they're too damn expensive and everybody's upside down. All right, so anyway, let's move on to Benny Johnson. Breaking: the Trump DOJ is officially investigating Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey for allegedly interfering with ICE operations. They are about to find out. CBS News: DOJ investigating Governor Tim Walz, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey over alleged conspiracy to impede immigration agents. And we'll see if there is a link to this CBS News article. Not too familiar with Benny Johnson's post. If he links them, probably not. No, he didn't, but that's okay. So I've got this from Grok. Details on Tim Walz and Jacob Frey DOJ investigation. The Department of Justice launched an investigation on January the 16th, 2026, today, into Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, both Democrats, of course, for allegedly conspiring to impede or obstruct federal immigration enforcement, particularly amid a large-scale ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, operation in the Minneapolis area. Here's the key details. Number one, the probe focuses on their public statements and actions criticizing the federal deployment of thousands of ICE and Border Patrol agents, which has led to clashes, protests, arrests, and at least one fatal shooting of a protester, Renee Good, by a federal agent, which the federal agent, by the way, suffered internal bleeding in his abdomen after Renee Good hit him with her vehicle. He had to spend time in the hospital, and that was confirmed by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And reports indicate subpoenas have been issued as part of the early stage investigation, potentially under federal statutes related to conspiracy to impede law enforcement or obstruct federal officers. The next point: this escalation follows criticism from Trump administration officials, including Deputy AG Todd Blanche, who accused Walz and Frey of encouraging unrest or terrorism against federal agents. And the fourth point: both officials denied wrongdoing and condemned the probe as political weaponization and intimidation. Walz called it an authoritarian tactic. Of course he did. And referenced other alleged political investigations. Frey said he won't be intimidated and will focus on city safety. Yeah, bullshit. All right, the DOJ finally, the last point, the DOJ declined a comment. Sources describe it as an extraordinary move amid tensions over the immigration crackdown. The investigation appears tied to ongoing federal-state clashes over immigration enforcement in Minnesota, with no charges filed yet. And this information was pulled from 28 different web pages, primarily news websites, I imagine. Not sure if any came from any government websites. Washington Post, KTSP, The Hill, Red State, The Guardian, and on, and plus 19 different posts from, same thing, mainstream news probably, primarily. So that's where that information was compiled from. So the Insurrection Act. I know President Trump has been talking about the possibility of invoking the Insurrection Act with regard to all the clashes happening between federal agents and violent rioters and violent crowds in general in Minneapolis who are, they say that they're out there peaceful protesting, but I mean, all these videos we keep seeing, they're doing anything but that. You know, they're harassing, they're assaulting, they're obstructing federal agents. So President Trump said he may invoke the Insurrection Act. So I went over this just the other day, explained the Presidential Insurrection Act. So the Insurrection Act, often called the Insurrection Act of 1807, is a U.S. federal law that gives the president broad authority to deploy active duty U.S. military forces or federalized National Guard units inside the United States. It serves as the main exception to the Posse Comitatus Act of 1878. So at the request of a state's governor or legislature, if it can't convene to suppress an insurrection against that state, it unilaterally by the president when unlawful obstructions or rebellion or violence makes it impractical to enforce federal laws through normal means. Also, it is used to suppress domestic violence or conspiracies or a combination of that that obstruct federal or state laws, including depriving people of constitutional rights or blocking justice, such as when a state is unable or unwilling to protect those rights. So I think that just those points alone, I think would be plenty justification for him to invoke that. I'm not sure if he's actually going to go forward with it or not. He said that he's still going to wait on their move. I mean, you know how President Trump did it with Nicolas Maduro. He gave him chance after chance after chance, and after he just absolutely refused to work with him, then he pulled the trigger. No pun intended, but he pulled the trigger, and, President Trump took care of business. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next thing. Eric Daugherty, just in, Americans are begging the Senate GOP to pass the SAVE Act and secure our elections after citizen journalist David Kate confirms people are registered to vote at abandoned houses and even abandoned homeless shelters in Atlanta. Pass it. So let's take a look at this.
Now we're outside one of the buildings that used to be torn down, and we'll put up a picture of what it used to look like on Google Maps just a year ago. And there's the entire neighborhood is just being remodeled. There's a couple homes that aren't being remodeled and they're completely torn down. But you can obviously see that now people live here, but that wasn't the case when a couple years ago when people were registered to vote from this location, and there was absolutely nothing here. What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, so I turned these in whenever they were abandoned houses. They were all boarded up, like some of the houses down the street, boards all the way over the windows. Clearly nobody was living there at the time. And if you look at these registrations, odds are it's the same person registered to vote there that was registered 3 years ago when it was boarded up.
You think if we kind of went and knocked on some of these people's homes that, tell them, hey, people are still registered to vote from here from before you remodeled it, what do you think their reaction would be?
I think they would be very surprised. I mean, I have people reaching out to me all the time, and they get a precinct card from somebody. They don't.
Well, look, my initial immediate question is if you registered to vote, let's say 15 years ago to an address, and you're no longer at that address, but you've not re-registered to vote, and you haven't voted since then, are you still technically registered to that address based on just like the voter laws? I believe, at least in the state of Florida, I believe there is an expiration. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that I have to renew my voter's registration card every few years. And they actually just send it to me through the mail.
I don't know who they are. Sometimes it might be from 3 prior homeowners. Sometimes it's somebody they've never heard of. But when Fulton County doesn't clean up their voter list, if you move out of state, you move out of county, maybe you live in Florida now. If you never clean up the voter rolls, you're going to have
I mean, look, that should all be automatically done at this point. We're in the 21st century. Everything's connected through the internet. And of course, the government, if there's one good thing they're at, or one thing that they're good at, it's being inefficient. However, this whole thing should be just integrated into the federal election system of sorts, so that if somebody were to move out of state, then it would automatically move them off the voter database. I mean, I would think they would have at least pursued, if not accomplished that by now.
A lot of
maybe the SAVE Act will take care of that.
So you might look up your own address and there's 5 extra people there that you don't know.
Did you submit a complaint to the county about specific locations like these abandoned homes where people are registered to vote from?
Yes.
Okay. And the response usually from the county has been the same as previous things?
Yes. I'm creating a lot of work for them. They're frustrated.
So what?
They do not want
what
me
they get paid for.
So real quickly, you can see that 924 right across the street is being remodeled because this was also abandoned the last time that I looked it up on Google Maps. Again, that's the similar pattern that we see across this street here is all of this was abandoned. You can see it on Google Maps, but now they're finally starting to remodel it. Yep. And that means that, again, people used to be or still are registered to vote that don't live here anymore. And now new people are going to move in here.
Yeah.
I'm sure that they'll want to register to vote and they'll learn, hey, I'm not the only one that's registered to vote from this location. There's maybe 10 others, 5 others, 6 others. And that's essentially the problem here is that the Fulton County doesn't clean their voter rolls.
Yes.
Is that right?
When people move out of state, Fulton County will not take them off.
Well, and I think the biggest question of them all is, whether if they're registered or registered to vote, that alone is a big problem if they're not actually at that address. So they could be double registered, triple registered under different addresses. And I think most importantly, that individual at that address, did they vote? Was that vote entered into the system on election day? That would be the big question. And do they have the ability to find that out? I'm sure that they do, but we've got the issue up in Oregon where the federal judge, I think it was a federal judge or state judge. Yeah, I think it was a federal judge that struck down the federal government's attempt to, well, really, they sent an order, I think they sent an order to Oregon to collect the voter rolls of the state so the federal government can compile the voter data to make sure that there wasn't anything fraudulent happening. And the judge said that the state doesn't have to comply with the order, and the part of the order they don't have to comply with is to send the full names of the voters or their addresses or their social security. Well, they don't have the full social security numbers anyway. It's like the last four of their social. So basically, the judge said that the state of Oregon has no obligation to send personal information of the individual voters to the federal government. So in other words, how the hell are they even going to know if the individuals who are registered at multiple different addresses voted at all of these addresses? I don't know. Maybe the information that the government can get from the state of Oregon may be sufficient to find that out. Doesn't sound like that it will, though. But anyway, so that's an ongoing issue. And this is from yours truly. So this is the true reason why Democrats strongly place illegals over Americans. Minnesota just lost a House congressional seats worth of illegal immigrants. Hey, Republicans passed a bill requiring only U.S. citizens are counted on the census when determining congressional seats. So this comes from Homeland Security directly. Electoral power is being transferred from the hands of criminal illegals back into the hands of American citizens. From Ryan James Gerdusky, Trump has already deported enough people from Minnesota for them to lose a congressional seat. And this is a link to his Substack, which I will have linked below for you if you want to take a look at that. Yeah, so that's not a video. It's just a standalone image. But I have more information on this from Eric Doherty. Holy smokes, President Trump has already deported enough illegal aliens in Minnesota for the blue state to lose a congressional seat, per Ryan Gerdusky. That means, one, in the Electoral College, blue states build their power off illegals. The 2030 census will be brutal for the left. Red states will absolutely surge. The deportations only hasten this process. And yep, they are right about that. And here's a video.
Sir, settle down.
You hear the R-word whistles back there that they repurpose for illegal immigration whistles that the progressive leftists like to blow. They blow the whistle when they see ICE agents. Isn't that hilarious? It's like birds chirping.
Back up, please. Back
I
up.
don't know what they expect to accomplish with that. If ICE is showing up to a house, you hear a whistle blowing, so what? Don't sign anything.
You are ashamed.
Back up. Back.
I don't think that's gonna matter. Oh, you're not gonna sign that? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, fine. You're free to go. You can stay inside the United States. Well, yeah, if you're not gonna sign it. All right, is that just all this is? Just a bunch of whistleblowers? Yep, that's what it seems to be.
That's what you better do. You better.
Oh, lovely. Calling them Nazis, calling them Hitler. That's the party of love and tolerance and acceptance, the party of peace. That's what they love to call themselves. They're not violent. No, of course they're not violent over on the left. They're just innocent American citizens. All right, so this comes from Homeland Security. Again, electoral power is being transferred from the hands of criminal illegals back into the hands of American citizens. Trump has already deported enough people. Okay, we already got that. All right, so let's move on to this. Rapid response from Tricia, Ohio. Quote, there is a very simple solution here. Governor Tim Walz and Mayor Frey should let us into their jails. Let us take those murderers, those R-worders, those child pedos out.
There is a very simple solution here. Tim Walz and Mayor Frey should let us into their jails. Those 1,400 individuals, those criminal aliens who have already had their due process, let us in those jails. Let us take those murderers, those rapists, those child pedophiles out. That would simply solve the solution. Work with state and local law enforcement. That is what we're asking. Down in Florida, there's been 40,000 arrests of criminal illegal aliens.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen peace.
No problem.
We've seen public safety. That's what we should be seeing across the nation. There's a very
exactly. And I live in the state of Florida. I haven't noticed any immigration anything going on. I haven't noticed any of it at all because when they get arrested, they get picked up inside the jail while they're still in handcuffs and they're peacefully transferred over to ICE agents and they're deported. But over in Minnesota, they don't allow ICE agents into the jail. Instead, they let out those criminal illegal immigrants out into the public where they have to be apprehended on the street. And of course, it's all just playing political games because they count on the far leftists to show up with their cameras and make it look all terrible, evil. They're kidnapping people and all that nonsense. So You know, that's the game that they're playing over on the left. Okay, moving on to Commander Up at Large, California, Gregory Bovino. He's based out of California, but yeah. Anyway, so different badges, one mission, gearing up together, FBI, Border Patrol, HSI, ICE, and ERO working side by side under a Title VIII mission. This is a whole-of-government approach, unified authorities, shared intelligence, and coordinated execution. Okay, well, that didn't teach us anything. I thought there was going to be some information with that, but I guess not. But here, maybe we can learn something out of this. So Title VIII mission, what is that exactly? What is the Title VIII mission regarding federal agencies? So Title VIII refers to Title VIII of the United States Code, USC, which contains the federal laws on immigration and nationality, often called the Immigration and Nationality Act, or INA. A Title VIII mission or operations authority under Title VIII typically means the enforcement, administration, or processing duties that federal agencies, primarily DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, components like Customs and Border Patrol, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and USCIS, they carry out under these immigration laws. This includes border control, apprehensions, deportations, asylum processing, visa adjudications, and related activities. In recent contexts, it often contrasts with emergency measures like former Title 42 expulsions and refers to standard immigration processing and enforcement by federal agents. Other agencies, some DOJ personnel, can also be granted Title VIII authority to assist in immigration enforcement. So in short, it is the core legal framework for U.S. immigration enforcement and administration by federal agencies. So yeah, so basically they're saying that there's a number of different agencies that are engaging in immigration and processing and deportations and so on. Okay, so those are just hashtags that they linked for the video. All right, so from Benny Johnson, Border Czar Tom Homan says he's pushing for a public database to make left-wingers who interfere with ICE operations famous. We're going to let their employers and their neighborhoods and their schools know who these people are. Well, can't say it's not clever because that's kind of clever.
And these people who want to, say follow ICE, and film ICE, you know what? You can protest. They have that right. But when you cross the line, and we've proven it, if you interfere or impede or assault an ICE officer, you will be prosecuted. And one thing I'm pushing for right now, Laura, we're going to create a database where those people that are arrested for interference, impediment, assault, we're going to make them famous. We're going to put their face on TV. We're going to let their employers in their neighborhoods, in their schools, know who these people are. Because as you said, a lot of these people, they say they're taking time off work to protest. I bet you a lot of them are calling in sick. I bet you a lot of employers don't know what they're doing. But we're going to make sure everybody knows who they are. We're going to broadcast. They want to broadcast the ICE officer that was nearly killed all over the internet. We're going to broadcast every one of these people we arrest.
Well, you might as well broadcast the Antifa individuals, the domestic terrorists that they're arresting as well. Don't stop with just the leftist rioters that are attacking ICE agents and other federal agents. All right, so from Nick Shorter, breaking DHS agents just commandeered a pickup truck from leftist agitators outside ICE Minneapolis after he attempted to block the driveway. He's now in a jail cell. DHS is not screwing around, and this was posted just 3 hours ago, so I'm assuming that this happened today. Which, by the way, I haven't really heard anything with regard to the ICE facility in Portland. That really fell out of the news headlines. I'm sure there's still a bunch of nonsense happening out there on a daily basis, but a few months ago, that was in the news every day, just constant clashes happening in front of the ICE facility in Portland, Oregon. But, all focus is shifted over to Minnesota, of course, because, not only because they have over 2,000 federal agents descending into the state of Minnesota currently apprehending illegal immigrants, but also the ongoing fraud situation that could be up to $18 billion worth of fraud that was stolen from the American taxpayers only in the state of Minnesota alone. And they're starting to suspect that it could be even far higher than that. So let's give this a watch. This ought to be entertaining. That is a nice truck, man. And hilarious that he's honking. Say goodbye to your truck. Beep, beep. They're even using it. Dude's even sitting on the truck, too. That's hilarious. It's now been seized. Property of the federal government. I mean, realistic? Probably not. I doubt they're seizing it, but they're certainly impounding it. Well, you know, they will seize it if they determine that he was using the truck during a commission of a felony. So if he laid a finger on one of the federal agents, or I don't know if obstructing federal agents, I think it might be a felony. I know it can carry a prison term of up to 8 years. So if they end up convicting him, or if they formally charge him with obstruction, and if it does carry a felony, then yeah, they are going to seize your truck and you won't get it back. Because if I'm not mistaken, that's what they did, right? So commandeered a pickup truck from leftist agitators outside ICE Minneapolis after he attempted to block the driveway. Yeah, so, I mean, that is classic textbook obstruction. So yeah, man, dude might not be getting his $60,000 truck back, which, there you go, man. You play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. All right, libs of TikTok. DHS officers arrested a furry who was obstructing traffic at a federal facility in Minneapolis. Here's another FAFO. Fucking idiot. You know, that almost could have been a Saturday Night Live skit. Hold on, I gotta see this again. Even got the phone set up here. Look, he's just filming himself. What a moron. All right, there you go. Oh, yeah, effing fascist. Okay. All right, next order. Justin, an anti-ICE agitator in Minneapolis, is heading to the federal building with a car jam-packed full of umbrellas, which will be used to deflect pepper balls from DHS agents. Again, who the hell is paying for all of this? Zero chance that it's the rioters. Now, are all these umbrellas identical? Of course they're not. There's a yellow one there, there's a gray one, there's a black one. So they're obviously they're purchasing them from multiple different locations. I mean, are they buying them up in bulk? And if so, where are they getting them from? Why are all these umbrellas all different? So, I mean, clearly there's some organization that's collecting umbrellas, and maybe they didn't pay for it all because they're not all the exact same umbrellas. So it doesn't appear that they were all purchased from the same company, but I mean, there's obviously a lot of organization happening behind it, and probably money too. I'm sure somebody was paid a lot of money to collect all these umbrellas. They probably paid for them too.
This is what 80 umbrellas look like, stuffed inside a Toyota Prius. Look at this shit. Look at this.
Yeah, there's those like heavy-duty outdoor umbrellas. At least some of them look like vinyl or something.
Yes. Oh, this is what 80 umbrellas look like.
All right, so yep, there it is. And from Andy, no. Minneapolis, far left open border extremists are marking SUVs and vans that they believe belong to ICE, signaling to the public to smash them up and loot, like they did after a violent convicted criminal Venezuelan migrant was shot in the leg. The militants have also targeted the wrong people, stopping and questioning random drivers they believe are federal agents. Yeah, dude, this is classic textbook terrorism, man. This is absolutely terrorism. Just trying to scare the public to the point where they're not even going to drive a domestic vehicle. I mean, look, Jeeps, Dodges, GMC, Ford. I mean, just domestic vehicles. There's a Denali. So what? So if you drive a vehicle that could be any color, really, it could be white or even a light color or a dark color. Then what? Then you just cannot drive your vehicle around Minneapolis, or else you're just going to get it vandalized because they're going to think you're federal agents. And also not forget, which I'm going to get to here in just a second, that the vandalism that Andy No is talking about happened just the other night, where that illegal immigrant was shot in the leg because they were attacking a federal agent trying to arrest him. Two guys ran out of the house that the illegal immigrant was trying to run into, and they attacked a federal agent with a shovel and a broom. And in self-defense, he shot one of them in the leg, which I believe is the one that he was trying to apprehend in the first place. Well, while all that was happening, a whole bunch of agents responded to the scene because there was an officer-involved shooting. And while they rushed to the scene, some of the vehicles were left in a parking lot, and those vehicles were vandalized, they were broken into, and equipment was stolen. And the FBI offered a $100,000 reward for the apprehension of the individual or individuals who were involved in the vandalism. So now we've got a bunch of far leftists that are going around vandalizing, just seems like just willy-nilly, whatever vehicle that they think might be a federal agent's vehicle. So just know that the FBI, they're issuing massive reward numbers, $100,000 to catch these people doing this. So, I mean, again, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. So Ollie Bradley breaking at least 11 government vehicles or rentals driven by federal law enforcement vandalized at a hotel in Eagan, Minnesota overnight. Probably the same ones that the FBI offered a reward on, but maybe not. This was posted this morning. So if this did indeed happen last night, then yeah, these are all different vehicles. These aren't related to the ones where they offered the $100,000 reward. So I can imagine they're probably going to offer yet another reward for this, which unfortunately, you know, that $100,000, if somebody claims it, it's taxpayer money, man. So either way, it's a lose-lose situation for the taxpayers at the end of the day. All right, so let's roll on to the next thing. I think we're... okay, no, never mind. We'll get to that reward because somebody was apprehended about it, or with regard to it. So Homeland Security update last night in Minneapolis, 12 anti-ICE agitators were arrested for assaulting law enforcement. Reminder, it is a federal crime and a felony if you lay a finger on law enforcement or destroy federal property. So yeah, if you spray paint a vehicle that's owned by the federal government, it's a felony. And moments ago, agent draws pistol, points it at front of the car as anti-ICE agitators kick and bash the vehicle. And Bill Mulligan is reporting on the ground in Minneapolis. I'm not familiar. I've heard his name. But yeah, congressional correspondent for Fox News. Yeah, and do better be careful, man. If they find out who he is, they'll probably end up attacking him. I mean, that's what Antifa loves to do. They hate it when you're down there filming. Whether if you're on one side or the other, they don't like anybody filming them because, you know, they're engaging in terroristic activities. So yeah, all right, so let's give this a play and see where this goes. All right, I didn't see anybody kick in the vehicle. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm sure that it was probably happening. It just wasn't in that angle, at least not what I saw. But yeah, man, if somebody dents the vehicle or if they crack the window, that's a felony. And again, I don't know if they're actually arresting these people. I really hope that they are. And I know that many, if not most of the American people are demanding it. And all these agitators and all these rioters, the troublemakers, as President Trump puts it, get arrested for doing what they're doing. So anyway, from Rapid Response 47, 9 hours ago, President Trump's Truth Social, in Minnesota, the troublemakers, the agitators, and insurrectionists are, in many cases, highly paid professionals. The governor and mayor don't know what to do. They have totally lost control and are currently being rendered useless. If and when I'm forced to act, it will be solved quickly and effectively. President DJT. Sounds like he may have had a phone call with the governor and the mayor. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. Sounds like that they're like, we don't know what to do. We have no idea. It's totally not us. Well, I mean, you're still responsible for it. Why aren't you sending out the local police or even the state police to arrest all these assholes? So, yeah, they are culpable. And now the DOJ is investigating them. All right, so U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement from 4 hours ago plays stupid games, win stupid prizes. Said 3 times so far tonight.
Okay, so we are looking at these new images out of Minneapolis showing anti-ICE agitators that have been arrested outside a federal building by DHS. The feds say the suspects threw objects, hurled profanities, and put the public at risk, dumping water onto streets to create icy, dangerous conditions. They've all been booked on federal charges.
Well, there you go. A bunch of felonies for them. Freaking idiots, man. They look like a bunch of winners, don't they? All right, Homeland Security, 3 hours ago. False. Okay, here, let me read this one first. This is kind of surprising to me. Walz alerts. I've actually read a number of their posts since I started doing the swamp here and there. But anyway, Walz alert says, breaking, the Department of Homeland Security has announced and is advising its U.S. citizens to be prepared to present proof of citizenship. And so Homeland Security responds to this. Homeland Security says, false. A person's immigration status makes them a target for enforcement, not their skin color, race, or ethnicity. Law enforcement uses reasonable suspicion to make arrests as protected under the 4th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The Supreme Court has already ruled that such actions are in line with the Constitution. So, sorry, Walz Alert, you got that one way wrong. All right, another one from Homeland Security. They were busy today, man, I'm telling you. 9 hours ago, law enforcement uses reasonable suspicion to make arrests as protected under the 4th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. The Supreme Court has already vindicated us on this position. A person's immigration status makes them a target for enforcement, not their skin color, race, or ethnicity.
Can you clarify what exactly that means? Do American citizens, as of now, need to carry their passports or other immigration documents to show that they're citizens?
CNN would come up with that nonsense.
I am so glad you asked this question because I think that there's a lot of confusion there about this. We have incredibly targeted immigration.
It's not a good question at all. It's a stupid question.
So what's happening there is there is reasonable suspicion. If somebody is in the vicinity of this operation, of this target, then they could be asked for their identification. We've been vindicated by the Supreme Court, September of 2025. You all saw a case out of Los Angeles where they said we can use a reasonable suspicion. I think I've seen a lot on this network and other places where they're talking about this is racially based. Absolutely not. Racial animus is no place in DHS.
No, there's a lot of white illegal immigrants too.
We're using what is protected under the Fourth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. All right, let's.
I mean, matter of fact, just one offhand example. There was an officer who was working for the Minneapolis Police Department who was an illegal immigrant from Eastern Europe, some white dude who could barely speak English, and he even had a service weapon and everything. He was a uniformed officer on duty when Immigration Customs Enforcement, when they apprehended him and took him in for deportation because he had an order for removal that he overstayed. I think it was a visa that he overstayed. And that was probably about a month or two ago at this point. It was a little while ago. All right, Homeland Security. On January 3rd, Geraldo Lunis Campos, a criminal, illegal alien, and convicted child predator, attempted to take his own life while he was detained at the Camp East, Montana detention facility. The security staff immediately intervened to save his life. Again, this is Homeland Security, their official account. So the gray badge indicates that it's an official government account. All right, so Campos violently resisted the security staff and continued to attempt to take his life. During the ensuing struggle, Campos stopped breathing and lost consciousness. Medical staff was immediately called and responded. After repeated attempts to resuscitate him, EMTs declared him deceased on the scene. ICE takes seriously the health and safety of all those detained in our custody. Yeah, because they're human beings, obviously. This is still an active investigation and more details are forthcoming. ICE investigates the circumstances of all deaths in custody. Campos was arrested by immigration authorities on July 14th of 2025 during a planned enforcement operation in Rochester, New York. He entered the U.S. in 1996 and has been charged with and convicted of multiple crimes, including felonies, since then. His convictions include criminal possession of a weapon, contact with a child under 11, reckless driving, possession of a controlled substance, and sale of a controlled substance. An immigration judge ordered Campos removed from the U.S. on March 1st of 2005. However, he was not removed because the government could not obtain travel documents. ICE transferred him to Camp East, Montana on September 6th of 2025. And this is from the Washington Post. When was that dated? Yesterday. Okay, yesterday at 6 p.m. Breaking news. An employee of El Paso County's Office of the Medical Examiner said it is likely to classify the death of Geraldo Lunis Campos at an ICE detention center as a homicide. A detainee says he witnessed Campos being choked to death by guards. Well, I don't know if they've got it on camera or not. Sounds like it just may end up, if it does end up having to go to a courtroom situation, that it's probably going to be just based on witness testimony. I don't know. Maybe they do have it on camera. Whether if they're going to release that to the public or not, it might be anybody's guess at this point. Just, I guess, depends on how deep the controversy goes. But according to Lauren Chen, an illegal immigrant died in ICE custody, and it seems the leftist media is now trying to turn him into George Floyd 2.0. Yeah, of course they are. But here are the facts of the case. Geraldo Lunis Campos was a convicted child R-worder. Based on that alone, my only complaint is that his death didn't happen sooner and more painfully. Campos also attempted to commit suicide and was prevented from doing so, fought security staff, and then died in the ensuing struggle. Leftists will attempt to use this incident as a sob story to stop ICE's deportation efforts. Do not let them. No, I don't think we will. DHS spokesperson told Newsweek, which, yeah, okay, so we read that already in the post from Homeland Security. All right, so we're going to move on to the next post. Why lie for clicks? It's still the same subject. The guy, Geraldo Lunis Campos, a convicted child predator, a criminal illegal alien from Cuba, attempted to take his own life while he was detained at the Camp East, Montana detention facility. The security staff immediately intervened to save his life. Campos violently resisted the security staff and continued to attempt to take his life. During the ensuing struggle, Campos stopped breathing and lost consciousness. Medical staff was immediately called and responded. After repeated attempts to resuscitate him, EMTs declared him deceased on the scene. I read the whole thing word for word because it comes from a different account. This is from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, so I figured I would just read that one all the way through. So I don't know what exactly he was trying to do. Was he trying to hang himself? Did he cut himself? I don't know. They didn't get that detailed with it. But Crystal Ball, of course Crystal Ball would say this. It appears that I strangled a detainee to death. Oh, no. So, yeah, she's on Crystal, Kyle, and Friends. I think she was on The Hill. She might actually still be on The Hill, but I believe she was at some point. All right, so let's move on to CBP. Politicians' inflammatory rhetoric has real-world consequences. Illegal aliens are so emboldened that they are attacking federal law enforcement. It needs to stop.
The rhetoric that they're putting out there is inflaming the situation and giving the people some type of belief that, hey, our governor says we're doing nothing wrong. Our mayor says we're doing nothing wrong. The law enforcement's doing something wrong. It's absolutely absurd, and it's not going to stop until the individuals out there stop encouraging people to attack law enforcement.
Well, you know, all these bozos, they're all going to end up catching felonies, and if they get convicted of felonies, they're never going to be able to get government student loans. They're not going to be able to join the military. They're not going to be able to own a firearm for the rest of their life. Not that most of them would, because they're probably scared to death of them anyway. So there's a whole slew of things. Plus, it's extremely difficult to get a job in most places.
Push back against law enforcement, using words like kidnapping, disappearing, arresting U.S. citizens.
Yep, violent rhetoric.
Yeah, we arrest U.S. citizens anytime they impede, anytime
exactly.
they're involved in
obstruct,
smuggling or any other
assault.
type of illegal crime. We don't arrest U.S. citizens for being in the country illegally, obviously. But imagine this. All three of those individuals that were involved in that assault on that ICE agent last night were in this country illegally. They're
all
not
three.
Even trying to hide anymore. They're actually becoming confrontational and fighting and assaulting law enforcement officers instead of, as the left would tell you, oh, they're hiding from immigration officers. No, they're confronting them and assaulting them.
I was saying, they're actually fighting with them at this point. All right, so I got this one. Another one from yours truly. Never trust a woman in politics who can't get a husband, and never trust a politician without children. They have no skin in the legacy game. Jasmine Crockett has neither of those things. Senate Republicans, reminder, leftist Jasmine Crockett called ICE officials fancy Uber drivers. She is against law and order and the brave men and women securing our borders. And by the way, she's running for the Senate seat in the state of Texas.
ICE, for the most part, is nothing but a ride. That's all they were supposed to do for the most part, right? It's like, you know what? This person is undocumented, or this person re-enters the country illegally, all the things, and then they have an ICE hold. And then ICE gets them so that they can then send them out. That's all ICE is supposed to do. Look at them as a fancy Uber driver for immigrants. That's all they're supposed to do. And now they're running into places and doing raids, and they're falling all over each other, injuring each other. Like, we are a joke, but it is a bad nightmare of a joke. And so I don't think that this president has any limits that he won't go to.
Yeah, and look, I'm always really reluctant to vote for anybody who doesn't have kids of their own, having a family. Look, whether they're married or not, like the times we live in today, it's more likely that you're not going to stay married for the rest of your life. But if you don't even have any kids, you've got no real, you don't have any direct interest into the direction that our country's going to take in any positive way. If you don't have kids, then, you don't really have my trust as a politician. And that's just my own personal opinion. Jasmine Crockett doesn't have any kids, and I don't believe she was ever married either. But yeah, so I don't know, just my own personal opinion. I guess we're all entitled to our own opinions. Okay, so this is from RNC Research from 7 hours ago. Gavin Newsom, he's exposed for flip-flopping on ICE. Yesterday, here, let me just read it here. So yesterday, failed California governor and chronic liar Gavin Newsom was exposed for lying about California cooperating with ICE. Newsom has repeatedly smeared the brave men and women of ICE and made California a sanctuary for criminal illegal aliens. And this is going to be on the Daily Wire. Gavin Newsom, California cooperates with ICE. Also Gavin Newsom, ...
California cooperates with ICE.
I mean, if some guy jumped out of an unmarked car in a van with a mask on, tried to grab me, I mean, by definition, you're going to push back.
Just ripped off the streets by masked men. This is a moral moment.
ICE, unmasked. What are you afraid of? What did Donald Trump do? He sent out his masked men. He sent out his secret police. And right outside are dozens and dozens of ICE agents.
All of this is about immigration enforcement and
it's about authoritarian tendencies. People disappearing happening in the United States of America today. These guys need to grow up. They need to stop. And we need to push back. And I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, they're not fanning the flames of political tensions at all. No, that's not violent political rhetoric in any way, shape, or form. That's what the left likes to say. That's what Governor Gavin Newsom likes to say. No, we're cooperating with ICE. Yeah, okay. All right, so got one more from Homeland Security. Now we're getting into the whole $100,000 reward situation. So we caught one of the individuals that was part of destroying the FBI vehicles. He will now be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. His life has been changed forever due to his foolishness. Don't be like him. Well, dude, he already changed his life in a very stupid way by tattooing his freaking face. Real winner there. All right, next order. Breaking Minneapolis rider successfully broke up in a weapons locker in a federal vehicle and stole a rifle and ammunition before fleeing. I captured the thief's face and license plate on the getaway vehicle. Really? Please share and help identify this POS. I have forwarded this to top levels of the FBI. So this actually might be part of that. I mean, that's what it certainly appears to be, because who was that? The Homeland Security, right? Yeah. So they ended up tagging this post. So, I mean, I'm going to assume that it's related.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
All right, so that's one. That's two people. That's three. There's four. How many else? 5.
There's some bullets.
Was that maybe 6? Stupid asses are fingerprinting all up and down this vehicle. Fucking retards, man. These people are so stupid.
No way.
Felonies.
Did he get...
And you know what? The FBI probably will go through and process that for DNA, too. I mean, maybe they might not get fingerprints, but they might be able to get enough material for a DNA sample. The DNA tech's gotten along pretty far since the early days. License plate. Got him. And that's how he got arrested, ladies and gentlemen. Through the work of Nick Sordor.
Oh, shit.
You know what? I wonder if that means Nick Sordor got a $100,000 reward. It would absolutely mean that, wouldn't it? The side of love, tolerance, and acceptance. And peace. Can't forget peace. They're all peaceful, right? Damn, dude, they even popped the hood. Yanking out freaking auxiliary parts from under the hood now? It took our fucking engine. What the hell? At least the wheels are still there. All right, well, there you go. That was the video in its entirety. Played the whole thing through from Nick Sordor. And yep, dude's under arrest. I don't know if they're going to get anybody else. Look, maybe the guy knew the other people that were there. Probably not. It looked like they all were probably just randomly scattering around the vehicle and grabbing what they could. But maybe they'll get others. You never know. They were putting their fingerprints all over the place. Although it kind of looked like a carpeted interior of that lockbox. So who knows if they're going to be able to process it and catch other people. But I mean, this is the FBI we're talking about. All right, so this is another one from ICE. Come to America legally or don't come at all. ICE officers in Minneapolis arrested Juventino Desiderio Espindola of Mexico, a criminal illegal alien who was previously deported for illegal entry in 2019 by Border Patrol. He will remain in ICE custody until he is deported.
¿Llaves del carro? Sí. Súbete.
Another one bites the dust. So you got another one. So let's see. Yeah, criminal illegal alien. I was just checking to see like what exactly he's a criminal of. Doesn't look like they say it, but you know, I'll take them at their word. All right, so Senator John Cornyn, after this week's violent attack by an illegal alien in San Antonio who rammed ICE vehicles, I have introduced the ICE Protection Act, which would increase penalties for any offender who violently assaults a federal law enforcement officer, including by using a car or truck as a weapon. I mean, okay, I guess you can try to enhance the penalties, I'm sure. You know, like, I mean, we're already talking felonies, but, you know, if they want to upgrade them, then I'm not going to exactly push back against it. The radical left has taken up a senseless crusade against our brave men and women in law enforcement, and their inflammatory rhetoric has fueled an alarming rise in violence that harms our brave officers. This bill sends a clear message: attacks on those who protect and serve will not be tolerated. And this is from the Daily Caller, and it says Senate Republicans unveiled legislation on Thursday to combat a surge of attacks against federal immigration officers. The lawmakers, led by Republican Texas Senator John Cornyn, are proposing to hike penalties for individuals who assault or resist law enforcement. Legislation would also enact minimum sentences for those who use vehicles to attack law enforcement, according to a copy of the bill obtained exclusively by the Daily Caller News Foundation. All right. I mean, I don't think they should only just restrict that to vehicles. I think if they assault them at all, or in any way, shape, or form, especially if it's, you know, documented by video, yeah, give them the mandatory minimum, man. I don't know what the mandatory minimum would be. But yeah, so this document's here. This whole thing I'll just link this whole website down in the description if you want to look at that PDF. Cornyn's bill, the ICE Protection Act, comes after the Department of Homeland Security announced on January 8th that vehicular attacks against ICE increased by 3,200% between January 21st of last year and January 7th of this year. The agency also reported a 1,374% increase in assaults against ICE officers between roughly the same period. DHS released the data following an incident in Minneapolis last week during which an Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer fatally shot 37-year-old Renee Good after she abruptly accelerated her vehicle during the confrontation. The ICE officer who fired shots at Good after she allegedly attempted to drive over him, oh, come on, Daily Caller, suffered internal bleeding during the incident, DHS said on Wednesday. Good was blocking the street with her car to obstruct an enforcement operation before the fatal encounter. The quote, the radical left has taken up a senseless crusade against our brave men and women in law enforcement, and Democrats' inflammatory rhetoric has fueled an alarming rise in violence that not only endangers our communities, but also harms the very people sworn to keep them safe, Cornyn said in a statement. Democratic Texas Rep. Jasmine Crockett, who is running in a competitive Democratic primary to unseat Cornyn, notably compared ICE officers to slave patrols during a radio show in September. Let's see. Okay, I was hoping to get to this. So Cornyn's legislation would specifically hike the statutory maximum sentence for assaulting or resisting law enforcement to 40 years. Look, resisting law enforcement, especially if it's without violence, putting it up to 40 years, I mean, that's overkill in my opinion, but up from the previous limit of 20 years. And the bill would also add a minimum sentence for vehicular attacks against law enforcement, ranging from 3 to 10 years, depending on the severity of the injury. I mean, look, if they ram law enforcement with their vehicle, I don't think anybody, myself included, or most people probably wouldn't have a problem with the 10-year minimum. I mean, dude, if you're using your vehicle and you're trying to run over agents, I mean, come on. Cornyn added that the legislation sends a clear message that attacks on law enforcement officials will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Those who harm our ICE agents will face the full force and wrath of the American justice system with these increases and penalties, said Republican Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, who joined Cornyn in introducing the bill in a statement. And it goes on just a little bit after that, but that's the gist of it. And we'll roll on to the next thing. From the U.S. Secret Service. In 2025, we investigated 60,000 point of sale card readers and terminals, uncovering illegal skimming devices and keeping more than $428 million out of the hands of criminals. And they have a link for that. 428.1 million, 9,000 businesses have been visited, 411 skimming devices were removed, and 60,000 terminals and devices were checked. Locations included LA, DC, Anchorage, Boston, Orlando, Charlotte, Buffalo, San Diego, New York City, San Antonio, Baltimore, Tampa, Atlanta, Savannah, Memphis, Miami, and Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I mean, skimming devices, they're razor thin at this point. They're almost impossible to notice, but they put them on the credit card swiping terminals, whether if it's at the gas pump or even at the register. You swipe your card and it swipes through this device that logs your credit card information. And most of these skimmers, they're also attached to that keypad, so they can get your 4-digit PIN number too. So, if you've never given your card out to anybody, if you never shop online at any sketchy third-party sites or anything like that, but somehow your bank account got hacked, that's I don't know if it's most likely that's what happened, but that's a pretty good chance that's what happened. You swiped your card through a skimmer, because people they'll slap them onto or a whole variety of different types of these card terminals, probably even ATMs too. They probably have a way of fixing them onto those too. All right, so FBI Director Kash Patel, excellent work from FBI Baltimore Safe Streets Task Force. Took down 2 drug trafficking orgs and 11 men indicted. Our field teams and great partners continue to dismantle DTOs across the country and save lives. 11 men indicted in a massive Baltimore drug bust. And this is on CBS. Let me see if I can get that. Yeah, here we go. CBS News. On Thursday, state leaders announced the takedown of a Baltimore drug trafficking organization, resulting in the seizure of nearly 9 kilos of narcotics and over $55,000 in cash. In total, 11 men were indicted on multiple firearm and drug trafficking charges. State's Attorney Ivan J. Bates made the announcement alongside U.S. Attorney for the District of Maryland, Kelly O'Hayes, a special agent in charge of the FBI Baltimore Field Office, Jimmy Paul, Assistant Special Agent in charge of the DEA Washington Division, Brian Crow, and Baltimore Police Colonel Robert Velty. And those are the individuals that have been arrested for guns and drugs. What was it, like 9 kilos? Is that what they said? Yeah, 9 kilos, $55,000. In the early months of 2025, crime prevention leaders, including the FBI's Baltimore Safe Streets Task Force, began an investigation into drug activity on the 1800 block of North Collington Avenue. There, they allegedly witnessed Terrell Pryor, along with several others, selling large amounts of cocaine. After Pryor's identification, judges gave the green light for investigators to wiretap 2 of his cell phones. Investigators say it led to the interception of multiple calls, which Pryor was dealing drugs. He allegedly sold large quantities of narcotics to multiple individuals who would then break them down for a street-level sale, according to police. Investigators found that Pryor often sold drugs to Alvin Edwards, Dominic Stokes, Darrell Anson, and Milton Davis. They also discovered Pryor frequently met with Norman Thomas and Nathaniel Gardner to get large amounts of cocaine. They would then split the cocaine among themselves to sell to their customers, and so on and so on. So, yeah, so they arrested all of them. They're going to be convicted for possession and drugs and a lot of cash, which I'm sure they're not going to be able to declare because it probably has to do with drugs. All right, so Department of State from just 3 hours ago, quote, in less than a year, we made 8 peace deals and ended the war in Gaza. We have peace in the Middle East. Nobody thought this was going to be possible. No, especially the left. In fact, I don't think the left even realizes that even happened. They still, shout, from the river to the sea, which, I guess that's not directly, I mean, it is related to it, but, that's just, a jab at Israel, trying to get rid of Israel altogether. But yeah, they're totally still yelling free Palestine and all that nonsense. So let's hear this from President Trump.
In less than a year, we made 8 peace deals and ended the war in Gaza. We have peace in the Middle East. Nobody thought that was going to be possible. We stopped
the left can't
India
admit that. President Trump, he brought peace to Gaza.
2 nuclear nations. They say many millions of people. The Pakistani prime minister said Donald Trump saved at least 10 million people.
Yeah, and Donald Trump freed Palestine.
It was
how you like
amazing,
that?
And it's an honor.
At least they're getting
And
there.
we obliterated Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity with Operation Midnight Hammer. That was another operation that was incredible. And then you have al-Baghdadi. We got out. That's the founder of ISIS, was rebuilding ISIS. Got him.
Yeah, that was back in, when was that? That was during his first administration, I think, right? Like back in like 2017 or 18 when they got al-Baghdadi. At least I think so. Okay, from the White House, peace through strength from President Trump's Truth Social. As Steve Witkoff announced, we have officially entered the next phase of Gaza's 20-point peace plan. Since the ceasefire, my team has helped deliver record levels of humanitarian aid to Gaza, reaching civilians at historic speed and scale. Even the United Nations has acknowledged this achievement as unprecedented. These results have set the stage for this next phase. As chairman of the Board of Peace, I am backing a newly appointed Palestinian technocratic government as National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, supported by the board's high representative to govern Gaza during its transition. These Palestinian leaders are unwaveringly committed to a peaceful future. With the support of Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar, we are securing a comprehensive demilitarization agreement with Hamas, including the surrender of all weapons and the dismantling of every tunnel. Hamas must immediately honor its commitments, including the return of the final body to Israel, and proceed without delay to full demilitarization. As I've said before, they can do this the easy way or the hard way. The people of Gaza have suffered long enough. The time is now. Peace through strength. I read somewhere that there's like hundreds of miles worth of tunnels that have been dug all around Gaza. It's just absolutely crazy. It's like a whole city. It's like the Paris catacombs. All right, so this is from Special Envoy Steve Witkoff. Today, on behalf of President Trump, we are announcing the launch of Phase 2 of the president's 20-point plan to end the Gaza conflict, moving from ceasefire to demilitarization, technocratic governance, and reconstruction. Phase 2 establishes a transnational technocratic Palestinian administration in Gaza, the National Committee for the Administration of Gaza, or NCAG, and begins the full demilitarization and reconstruction of Gaza, primarily the disarmament of all unauthorized personnel. The U.S. expects Hamas to comply fully with its obligations, including the immediate return of the final deceased hostage. Failure to do so will bring serious consequence. Importantly, Phase 1 delivered historic humanitarian aid, maintained the ceasefire, returned all living hostages, and the remains of 27 of the 28 deceased hostages. We are deeply grateful to Egypt, Turkey, and Qatar for their indispensable mediation efforts that made all progress to date possible. So they're moving on to the next phase. And we got this one from U.S. Senior Advisor for Arab and African Affairs. Constructive meeting in Cairo with President el-Sisi on promoting regional peace, security, and stability. On Sudan, we agreed the parties must accept the truce without conditions. We continue working through the UN and with partners to end the suffering by providing desperately needed aid to the starving. We also discussed how the region would benefit from a united Libya and appreciate Egypt's support in advancing a Libyan-led political process. On Gaza, we agreed that the president's visionary leadership on the historic 20-point peace plan paves the way for an end to the war. The United States is grateful for Egypt's mediation efforts that were essential to progress at this point, or to this point. In line with these shared priorities, all partners in the region, including Egypt, acknowledge the importance of working together to defeat terrorists for the benefit of Yemen and the region. And he's got a few images where those talks took place, and that's in Egypt. I believe that's the Egyptian flag. Pretty sure. Okay. And heading on to the next thing from the White House, President Donald J. Trump meets with Maria Corina Machado of Venezuela in the Oval Office, during which she presented the president with her Nobel Peace Prize in recognition and honor. So would you take a look at that? There's her Nobel Peace Prize, which, of course, she won for 2025. She got the Nobel Peace Prize, and she dedicated her Nobel Prize to none other than President Trump during her speech that she gave when she accepted her Nobel Peace Prize. So, yeah, she's a Trump supporter, apparently. All right, so anyway, Department of State, serve overseas, protect our diplomats, investigate transnational crime, support America globally. Apply now at doscareers.usajobs.gov/jobs. Yeah, so if you want to be a Foreign Service Special Agent, they are hiring at the U.S. Department of State, and I will give that a link if you are just so interested. And from Rapid Response, 9 hours ago from the President's Truth Social again, great meeting on healthcare this morning. The federal government money must be paid not to the insurance companies, but directly to the people. Great healthcare will be provided at a substantially reduced cost. And we've got this from President Trump regarding the healthcare roundtable that they had earlier today.
And next, our plan would reduce your insurance premiums by stopping government payoffs to big insurance companies and sending the money directly to the people. So instead of...
Hey, hold on, just real quick, full stop. I didn't catch this today. So the Iranian crown prince, was he just exiled or has he been exiled for who knows how many years from by the Ayatollah or whatnot? I'm curious. I might have to look that up.
This started, and I'm not really a healthcare maven, but I was always a good businessman. I saw that I'm reading the paper and I see the money that the insurance companies were making from us on Obamacare.
Oh, insane money.
And they're up by 1,000%, I think one was up 1,723%, 1,700%.
Yep.
And it's because
fucking highway
of the
robbery,
massive
man.
amount of money that's
Thank
sent
the Democrats.
to them
Thank
by
Obamacare
the
for that.
United States government. And I
That's
said,
where they got
why
it
don't
from.
we just send it directly to the people instead? And I
you
made
would
that
think.
statement. It was a common sense statement. I didn't check with anybody. I didn't even call Oz or anybody. It just made sense. I made a statement.
Well, it makes sense because if you give it directly to the insurance companies, then they could basically, just essentially charge or deny whatever they want. I mean, I think United Healthcare, their rate of denial is like 30%, meaning that if you need a procedure, even if it's a life-saving procedure potentially, that United Healthcare, you got a 30% chance for them just denying it outright. Nope, we're not going to pay for that. And it's absolutely insane. I don't think that it brings any competition at all. And if the patients, if the power was given to the patients, then there would be, I would assume there'd be more competition between facilities, and that would, I would think that would drive down prices. But I'm no expert.
It went viral. Can you believe it? It was so popular. In other words, we cut out the insurance companies. They're making a fortune, and they're good people. They're business people. I don't blame them. But we cut them out. We pay the money directly to the people. The people love it.
Well, yeah, who wouldn't love that? As long as it gets healthcare costs down, I think that's what people are most concerned with. So here's another one from the same event. And
So
we'll hear
to further reduce insurance premiums, my plan ends the giant kickbacks to those insurance brokers and corporate middlemen that you've been hearing about for so long. It also funds the so-called cost-sharing reduction program to bring down the cost of the most common plans on the exchanges by more than 15%. And next, the great health care plan
Not very much, but it's a start.
Unprecedented accountability and transparency from insurance companies and all health care providers. We want transparency. You're not allowed to ask a doctor how much is it going to cost. You're going to have your heart ripped out, and you're not allowed to negotiate. This is
I thought that's always been the law. I thought you've always been allowed to request an itemized bill.
It's in certain ways. Look, nothing can compare to most favored nations. But when you give yourself the right to negotiate, you're not allowed to even ask how much it costs. You're supposed to go into a hospital and get operated on. Then they send you a bill and you have to file for bankruptcy. Not going to let that happen.
Insane.
So we're going to have insurance companies and healthcare providers going to have great, and hospitals, great transparency. The word transparency is a very important word. So they can't get away with ripping you off any longer. It requires insurance companies to make it easy for you to compare plans.
Look, I think the industry is also engaging in full-on price gouging. Like if you go into the emergency room, you have to get a CT scan for who knows what. It could be for anything. But if you go into the emergency room, they're going to charge you like $8,000 for it. But if you get one scheduled at some radiology center that your doctor, wants you to get a CT, or it could be an MRI or whatever. But if you go to get that done, it could maybe cost like maybe $1,000. But I think that if you're just paying out of pocket, it's probably not going to cost more than a few $100 to get that done. But if you go into the emergency room, they're going to charge you hyper-inflated prices, absolutely insane prices. And it's not just for something like a radiology procedure. I think that extends to everything. Even if you get like an IV administered in the emergency room, they charge you like damn near $1,000 for that. But over what, like $10 worth of materials? I mean, come on. So, all right, so I got one more. Let's do one more.
Mr. President, thank you for standing up for American health care. And I just want to
this is from Dr. Oz, by the way.
Important issue. We need Congress to help craft the Great America Health Care Plan. And the Great Health Care Plan will work. It's a brilliantly conceived framework. And as it comes to the American people, they understand that they'll want it. And it should represent the analogous situation, similar to what you did so brilliantly last spring with the Working Families Tax Cut legislation that the President mentioned, has created the Rural Health Transformation Fund, which is why we're here today. I want to put a little bit of texture around why this is such an important issue, because the Rural Health Transformation Fund is the largest investment ever in American history in our rural communities. Yeah, how about that? 50% increase in the amount of money that Medicaid, which Secretary Kennedy and I regulate, into our rural communities, $50 billion. You can do the math, it's $1 billion per state, and that's an important factor because it got them competing. There are 60 million rural Americans, and these folks do not have access to the same care that's available in urban and suburban America. Their life expectancy, if they're in a vulnerable situation, is 9 years shorter, because your zip code actually is your destiny. It determines how long you're going to live, and we can make a dent in this because the high rates of chronic disease and other ailments that plague our rural areas are often driven because they don't have access to care. That's going to change because of the Sentinel legislation. And again, it's similar teams, the same leadership, same president, same Congress that passed the Working Families Tax Cut legislation, which is incredibly popular around the country and will make the great health care plan successful as well. From the day the legislation was signed to create this wonderful fund, this transformational fund, the team at CMS, which is under Secretary Kennedy, began working. And they're here today. Steph Carlton, outstanding Chief of Staff, Alina Chekai, and Emily Chan. That day started working. It was July the 4th, by the way, on the specific vision for the program. How do you actually get the money out the door in 6 months? The president was insistent, did not want the money in Washington. So we began working closely to make sure that we use the money not as a Band-Aid, but to empower those closest to the challenges that rural patients face. And who are those people, the 50 people who know rural health care the best? The governors. They wanted the money out of Washington into the governor's hands, and that was done in a remarkable way. The governors thought big.
I think they've already dispersed all those funds at the beginning of this year.
To start working on community engagement, which is part of that legislation as well. But we have to right-size health care in rural America, and that's an important phrase. All 50 states submitted amazing ideas to transform rural health care in ways that should have been done decades ago. The CMS team awarded each team their portion of the $50 billion investment precisely with the same precision that we took Venezuela leadership, a convicted individual, and with Iran as well. The same precision on time before the end of the year, and got it out of Washington into the states.
Yeah, with regard to the $50 billion rural health care, they dispersed different amounts to each individual state. All 50 states got amounts into the hundreds of millions of dollars. But I believe that they got different amounts depending on the size of the rural population, and they probably had other factors. But, I mean, we just want to get back to the point where we pay $250 for an inpatient visit, $100 for the ER, $35 for a specialist, like back in the 2000s. That's what most of us had. I mean, not this insanity where we have to pay 30+% of the entire medical bill up to $3,000, $5,000, $10,000. If we get to a point where an inpatient visit costs $500 and not $250, it's still double the price that most people paid in the 2000s, but it's still a hell of a lot better of a deal than what we've got today. All right, so this is from the White House. This is the full roundtable meeting. Of course, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but anytime I come across it, I at least like to share it and show y'all who's watching this that it's out there. So I'm going to repost it. There's a direct link to my profile, my X profile, in the description below. So you can view it there, or you can go to @WhiteHouse if you have an X account, even though I don't think you have to be signed in to view content on the X account or on the X platform. So, so I'm not going to go ahead and play this since we've already seen at least a few clips from the roundtable event. Got a couple of the highlights, and we'll just move on to Kush Desai, ACA covers 7% of Americans. The great healthcare plan will not only reduce premiums and costs for that 7%, but the other 93% of Americans who also use healthcare. This is comprehensive, common sense reform that some fake news clowns are struggling to comprehend. And he's replying to Dan Diamond, who said, our first look at Trump's great healthcare plan, a grab bag for proposals that fall far short of the Affordable Care Act replacement he's long promised. And it's from the Washington Post. I don't really want to give them the time of day, but I don't want to at least show too heavy of a bias. So at least, if it'll let me, I'll read. It's not gonna let me read it, is it? I don't think it's going to. Nope, it's not letting me click out of it. Come on. Well, I was gonna read the first paragraph at a minimum. Let me see if I can do this. I think I've already done this with Washington Post. Opening up a private window. Sometimes it works for some news websites. but I'm assuming for this one it's not going to work. Let me see. Polls have found many voters are unhappy with rising healthcare premiums and lawmakers' inability to reach a deal on ACA subsidies that expired last month, a lapse that has contributed to a spike in health insurance costs for millions of marketplace enrollees. Democrats mocked the administration's language Thursday, questioning whether Trump could call this proposal a plan, given the lack of details. Quote, Donald Trump's new plan is a Band-Aid for the full-blown healthcare crisis he and Republicans in Congress created, Senator Elizabeth Warren told the Washington Post in a statement. Yeah, because, Obamacare doesn't exist. Obamacare never happened. It was totally, well, if it did happen, it was all the Republicans that did it. Come on now. All right, so Trump's proposal includes a mix of initiatives that are already underway, such as Trump's push to cut U.S. drug prices by linking them with the lower costs of drugs sold abroad, and some of his stalled ambitions, such as his desire to redirect billions of dollars in federal funding away from health insurers and toward average Americans. Trump also called to restore funding for the ACA's cost-sharing reduction program, an insurance subsidy program that he ended in his first term, and to institute maximum price transparency by requiring hospitals and insurers to make more information available to consumers. The proposal does not include new ideas to expand health coverage or simplify Americans' often Byzantine healthcare system. It also falls far short of Trump's promises to deliver a replacement for the ACA, the sweeping 2010 health law that has been credited with helping more than 20 million Americans get health care coverage and has long been targeted by repeal by Trump and his GOP allies. Well, because they promised us a lot of shit and we never got what we were promised, such as cheaper health insurance. Look, I don't know if most people have the ability to do so, but take a look and see how much money that you're paying for your health insurance back in 2010, and also look at your deductibles and compare it to where we're at right now. Did you have to pay 20% or 30% or 40% of your entire medical bill up front just to get treatment, just to get care, up to a number that's like $5,000 or $6,000? No. Maybe some people had health insurance like that back then, but that is like abysmally bad insurance. And now it seems to be just the status quo, thanks to Obamacare. So anyway, Republican leaders have refused to extend an ACA subsidy program that expired in December, with Democrats pushing to restore that program as a way to lower healthcare costs and reduce instability in insurance markets. Well, that's not framed accurately at all. It's not lowering healthcare costs at all. First off, it's definitely putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm, but what it's doing, it's masking the true cost of Obamacare for individuals, for what you have to pay per month, because the subsidies are going to artificially lower people's monthly premiums, but it doesn't lower their monthly premiums. It only appears that it lowers it. And plus, the subsidies, where are they getting the money from? From the taxpayers. They're taking money from the taxpayers to make it look like that their health insurance is cheaper than it actually is, because that's what the Democrats like to do. They like to play the smoke and mirrors game. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. I think we're ready for another topic. Oh, wait, maybe not. So not just yet. We got this from House Democrats. Trump's so-called great healthcare plan is a great disappointment. It does nothing to extend the ACA tax credits that millions of Americans rely on. Well, that's a good thing. The only real solution is Democrats' bill to extend the tax credits. The Senate should pass it immediately. No, I mean, I've already given my statement on that. So anyway, let's just move on. Rapid response 47. This seems like some fairly good news. CNN shows payments on a $500,000 home back when the president took office versus now. A year ago, your monthly payments were almost $2,700 for principal and interest. Now they're around $2,400 over the course of a year. You're talking about $3,000 less in interest. That's huge. And that's on CNN.
Let's just say you're buying a $500,000 home. You're putting 20% down. A year.
Which is insane, by the way. I mean, look, you think that an American who's in his or her 20s or 30s, and even many in their 40s, you really think that they can afford a $2,414 mortgage? That doesn't include, what is that? Like you have to have, oh man, what's the number? It's been a while since I've looked at it. It's either 1% or it's 3% of the value of your home that you have to have in savings, just in case that, I don't know, your water heater breaks or you need a plumber, just for maintenance costs. Whatever the number is, like, you have to have that in savings, and you have to expect to spend roughly that amount on an annual basis, because you never know when you might need your roof put on. I mean, a roof could cost, what, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, depending on your square footage. Maybe you have to have your driveway repaved or whatever. I mean, there's a million different things that could come up with home ownership, and $2,400. I mean, it's an absolute insane amount of money. I mean, that's almost $30,000 a year, and the average American household earns, let's say, $80,000. I mean, that's 36%. That's a little over 36% of your entire income, and that's gross income. That doesn't even include, after your income's been taxed. So, post taxes, you're probably talking, 45% of your income, which is brutally insane. That doesn't include your car payments, your utilities, your insurance costs. If you have kids, daycare on average is over $1,000 a month now per child. It's absolutely unsustainable. So, yes, it's good news that it's down from $26.72 to $24.14, but dude, we have got a really long way to go. Maybe somebody in their 50s, their 60s might be able to swing $2,400 a month, but Gen Z, younger millennials, even older millennials, they can't afford this.
A year ago, your monthly payments were almost $2,700 for principal and interest. Now they're around $2,400. Now that might not sound like that much. It's about $260 difference. But over the course of a year, you're talking about $3,000 less in interest. Over the course of a loan, it's over $90,000. So that's huge, right? That's
the
less
vast
money
majority
going to the bank,
of Americans
more
can't
for
afford
everything
that,
else in life. Now, all of this comes after the White House has really started to focus more on this issue of housing affordability, right? The president wants to ban large institutional investors from scooping up single-family homes.
It certainly helped.
Significantly, he announced plans to have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac buy $200 billion of mortgage bonds. And experts are saying that those efforts from the president, they're already helping to drive down mortgage rates, which of course is encouraging.
Yeah. Well, it's not the rates, dude. It's the price. It is the price. And yes, interest rates going down. Sure, that's going to help. That might help re-energize some people into buying a home, because I know there's a lot of people, even going back since 2021, or no, it was 2023, I think, right, when they jacked up the interest rates. So there are people that are still renting that want to buy a house. They've saved up enough money for a down payment, but they don't want to get stuck with 6-7% interest rates. So they're waiting for the interest rates to go down. So if that happens and interest rates are to be reduced to, 5%, maybe even 4%, then yeah, you'll see a lot of interest in the housing market again. But what is that going to do for housing prices? It's only going to send them going up even higher. And they're what, double? The average house is twice the cost that it was in let's say 2019. So it's, yeah, interest rates, okay, sure, but that is not going to solve the underlying problem. And it's shutting out the great majority of Americans out of the housing market entirely. And interest rates are not going to fix that. In my opinion, I think it's only going to make it worse. All right, so anyway, let's move on to House Democrats. Another one. While Donald Trump is focused on running foreign countries, Americans' pocketbooks are hurting. Trump promised to lower costs on day one, but instead the price of groceries, childcare, housing, and healthcare is only going up, which is not true. Healthcare probably going down a little bit. Housing, we just saw on CNN, of all places, left-wing CNN, housing's going down. Fucking idiot. And childcare, I don't know, childcare, maybe it's going up because, healthcare might be holding steady. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is still increasing. Well, look, I know the whole Obamacare thing, the Affordable Care Act thing. Yeah, that's going up because the subsidies expired. Doesn't have anything to do with Trump. That has everything to do with Democrats. They're the ones that set that timeline, not Republicans. Not a single Republican voted for Obamacare or the subsidies. So, can't blame that on them. Of course, they're going to anyway. Price of groceries? Nope, price of groceries are going down. In fact, 85% of all of our groceries and beverages are produced inside the United States and therefore are not subject to tariffs. So anyway, let's give this a watch.
My families in my district is begging for is relief at the grocery store. They need child care that doesn't break the bank.
Well, dude, quit gaslighting them and take ownership. They need to be blaming you for that problem.
For houses that they can afford and health care that does
local
not
Democrats'
drain their
problem.
Life savings.
Yep, it's all their fault.
What
local Democrats? It's your problem, dude. Okay, anyway, let's move on. All right, National Guard. Welcome home. Family and friends embraced Arizona National Guard soldiers returning home from a 9-month deployment supporting the European Defense Initiative with vehicle recovery, repairs, and maintenance to sustain mission capability. Well, that's cool. Yep, Arizona National Guard. And just the other day, what was that, on Wednesday? Maybe it was even yesterday, where I came across a post from the Oregon National Guard. They were out in Egypt, if I'm not mistaken, and they were serving 9 months out there. So yeah, man, more National Guard members coming home. All right, USDA, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, and it looks like a 5-parter. So there is no new world screwworm in the United States. USDA is working day and night to carry out the Secretary's 5-pronged plan to keep the screwworm out of the United States. As part of that effort, ... And then we've got this article, which I'll link. USDA maintains a large network of validated traps along the border, and we will find it if it comes north so that we will quickly eradicate it. Every day we are finding flies, with over 37,000 in Texas alone since June 2025, and none of them have been New World screwworm, which if I could be mistaken, but I think the New World screwworm is a parasite that gets attached onto these flies, I think. All right, so anyway, if the New World screwworm does not cross the border, or if it does cross the border, we will immediately notify our state and industry partners and the general public while simultaneously activating our NWS playbook. And we will continue to provide updates on all verified reporting data, interagency actions, and all other NWS resources on the NWS website, which you can find on screwworm.gov. In addition to these activities, USDA, through a whole-of-government approach, will continue to support and press Mexico in their efforts to mitigate the spread of the New World screwworm. And where did that pop up first? Oh, okay, so it was way over here. Well, it pops up in random areas, but... So I'm not going to read through all of this. I'm just going to read through a little bit. Just maybe see if we can get a little info as to what the screwworm is, in case you don't know what the screwworm is. Because, to be honest, I kind of forgot what it was, too. I just know that it's like a parasite, a pest, or something like that. So, okay, all right, here we go. So NWS, which is the New World screwworm, it is a devastating pest that causes serious and often deadly damage to livestock, wildlife, pets, and in rare cases, humans. While NWS has been eradicated from the United States for decades, recent detections in Mexico as far north as Oaxaca and Veracruz, about 700 miles away from the U.S. border, led to the immediate suspension of live cattle, horse, and bison imports through the U.S. ports of entry along the southern border on May 11th of 2025. And again, I'll have that linked if you want to take a look at that. But it doesn't seem to be a problem for us, at least not right now, because they haven't detected any in the U.S., at least not recently. Oh yeah, hold on, I forgot I clicked on all those. All right, so here we go. From the White House, the state of Florida honors President Trump by renaming Southern Boulevard to President Donald J. Trump Boulevard. What do you know?
So I'm tremendously honored that the main boulevard from Palm Beach International Airport to the beautiful Mar-a-Lago is being renamed in my honor. That's a very important stretch. I'll remember this amazing gesture for the rest of my life.
Well, there you go. Surprised Governor DeSantis isn't there. That's
a serious sign.
President Donald J. Trump Boulevard, designated by the 2020 legislature of Florida. And I would not be surprised if other roads are renamed Donald J. Trump Boulevard or road or highway. I think they rename a lot of highways after presidents, don't they? Pretty sure they do. All right, Secretary Sean Duffy. Now this is class. Dov Kleeman, trending. Former Dolphins HC Mike McDaniel has gone viral for his outlandish outfit while boarding a flight to Baltimore to interview for the Ravens head coaching job. Oh my God, he's wearing a suit. Holy moly. It's so outrageous. While everybody else is wearing hoodies and pajamas and overalls. Dude's got overalls on. I didn't even know anybody wore overalls anymore. Unless you're at work, working some blue collar job, a plumber or something, or a farmer. All right, so let's move on to U.S. National Archives. The National Archives research rooms will be closed on Monday, January 19th, in case you were wondering. The birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. regular hours will resume on Tuesday. The National Archives Museum in Washington, D.C. will remain open. More visitor info you can find at archives.gov/locations. Because so many people who listen to this, you're totally going to go to the National Archives over this weekend, and you're hoping to go in on Monday, but can't do any research. All right, from Clown World. Remember this epic post? Yeah, from Donald J. Trump. He posted this himself. I promise not to do this to Greenland. Trump Tower in Greenland. All right, I had to do it. Why not? It's Friday. All right, Department of War, CTO, Under Secretary Emil Michael on deploying AI to 3 million people in the Department of War. We said, okay, how are we going to deploy AI? So we simplified it. There are 3 broad categories we're going to deploy it on: enterprise, intelligence, and warfighting. Dude, this sounds so ominous, man.
Instead of white papers and theories and committees, we said, okay, how are we going to deploy AI? So we simplified it and say, well, there's 3 sort of broad categories we're going to deploy it on. One is enterprise use cases, like any company would use it for efficiencies, right? The second is intelligence. We get a lot of intelligence from satellites, from all the things the United States does across the enterprise that previously used human analysts for. And so if you could improve the leverage of the human analyst by teeing up to them, here's 10 things we saw that you should look at, man, you're going to make that analyst way more efficient, right? And then, well, if I could take this type of intelligence and fuse it with this type of intelligence, I'll make that analyst really capable, because usually one type of analyst looks at one type of intelligence. So the more data I can aggregate from all these sources, the more intelligence we can use, which is a great deterrent because we have the best intelligence collection in the world. And then third, for warfighting. So warfighting is a complex sort of thing. You're doing war gaming, you're doing planning, there's a lot of formalities in how you execute orders, how you simulate what might happen if you do different scenarios. So across those three areas, enterprise, intelligence, wargaming, we'll have a few pace-setting projects within each of them, which are designed to sort of both break down barriers to make sure we get their data in the system, but to show people in the department, holy cow, you realize this is what AI could do.
Yeah, man, it's just kind of ominous if you ask me. In AI, it's an insanely powerful weapon. At least they're dressing it up to be an insanely powerful weapon, or potentially a weapon. And you've got to anticipate that Democrats are going to retain control, or they're going to regain control of the federal government at some point in the future. And not to mention, the foundation of AI on most platforms were developed by Silicon Valley types, progressives, Democrat-aligned individuals. So you think that AI might have some bias here and there? Yeah, it probably does. And time again, I think OpenAI is the one that's the most controversial with regard to bias. And they keep saying that they're fixing the bugs, they're tweaking this and that. I don't know, man. Just like integrating it so tightly, weaving it into every facet of our federal government. I don't know, man. I got a bad feeling about that. But what are we gonna do? All right, so Mike Lee, thousands of CCP loyalists have access to American labs in the AI race against China. We're practically begging them to spy on us. With Senator Tom Cotton and our GOP colleagues, I'm urging the Department of Energy to protect our AI research and ban Chinese nationals from American labs. And I won't go through the whole letter. It's going to take probably 5+ minutes to go through it, but I'll repost it if you want to have a look at that. And it'll be on my profile, link in the description below. And moving to fiscal service Trivia Tuesday answer. The U.S. government collected about $5 trillion in total tax revenue in fiscal year 2025. Find the answer here. Find one answer. That we collected $5 trillion? How much revenue has the U.S. government collected this year? Okay. Wait a minute. So the government revenue is income received from taxes and other sources to pay for government expenditures. The U.S. government has collected $1.22 trillion in fiscal year 2026 so far. All right, man. That's a lot. And we're not even out of January yet. So, so what does that mean? We're on pace. They're on pace to collecting like $14 trillion, being 1.22 trillion so far, and month's not even done yet. Hell, we're just barely, we're only halfway through the month, for crying out loud. So, I guess we'd be talking about, $25 trillion maybe. All right. From Aaron Bean, the House GOP is working to get our fiscal house in order and rein in excessive spending. This week, we passed 2 more fiscal year 26 appropriations bills, 8 down, 4 to go. And they're looking at interior and environment, state and foreign operations, energy and water, financial services and general government, also commerce, defense, legislative branch, and agriculture, also rural development and the FDA. We're going to keep the momentum going and continue delivering results. Well, I certainly hope so, because where are we at now? 25% of all government spending is going directly to interest on our national deficit. Brutally insane. Absolutely absurd. All right, Rep. Glenn Groffman. Today, the House passed the Retirement Savings Protection Act, a win for American workers and retirees. For too long, hard-earned retirement savings were at risk, used to push woke ESG agendas instead of focusing on what matters most, financial security and maximum returns. This bill ensures plan managers put your money first, not politics, protecting the retirement funds of 152 million Americans from risky Green New Deal policies. ESG is dead. And I remember E is for environment, G is government. Hold on, I actually pulled it up. So what does ESG stand for? Environmental, social, and governance. So in case you forgot, it's been a little while since I've heard talks on ESG, but it's a framework used to evaluate a company's sustainability, ethical impact, and risk management in these 3 key areas. Environmental, how a company addresses climate change and pollution, resource use, and etc. How it manages relationships with employees, suppliers, customers, communities, human rights, and etc. So probably a lot of DEI woven into that one. And governance, leadership structure, transparency, ethics, executive pay, board diversity, etc. All right. So ESG is dead, HR 2988. And then the first comment, whatever. I'll believe it when I see it. Okay, so U.S. Commerce Department. Watch, Secretary Lutnick speaks at Micron's groundbreaking ceremony in New York. $100 billion investment, the largest private investment in the state's history. This historic project will create 50,000 jobs and strengthen America's semiconductor manufacturing capacity, producing advanced chips critical to AI, automobiles, telecommunications, defense systems, and next-generation technologies. And I didn't bother posting it. At least I don't think I did, unless it's right after this post. But Chuck Schumer, he was trying to take all the credit for this, and he said he was working on this forever. And I'm sure he had a hand in it because he is a senator of New York. But of course, he's not going to give any credit to President Trump. But just this initiative, like this, building all of these facilities for microelectronics and AI development, that just goes to show why silver is pushing over $90 an ounce right now. It's gone up like 30% over just the last month or so. It's gone up like substantially. I never thought that in my life I would see silver actually like realistically reach any like $100, freaking $100 an ounce. I know back in the 90s it was like $5 an ounce, and only just like 5 years ago it was like $15 for an ounce of silver, and now it's approaching $100. And not exactly like they say that there's a I don't know if bottleneck is the right word to describe it, but there's obviously a big demand in silver. There's the demand is far and above the supply, or the supply that's being mined out of the ground, and yeah, it's just causing the price to skyrocket. And this is certainly, in my opinion, I think this is only going to send silver going up higher. But I'm no expert on it, no advice or anything like that. I'm not saying you should be investing in anything. I'm just pointing out, that silver is used in all of our electronic components. Based on today's silver value, I just read this earlier today, that each individual cell phone has about $1 worth of silver in it. Like, there's about $1 worth of silver per cell phone based on today's value, like $92 an ounce. All right, so anyway, so here's the video. This video of Howard Lutnick, and we'll take a look.
Thank you, everyone. It is great to be in central New York, which, of course, you all know is the heart of Trump country.
That's totally a real background. They already built the building,
Look,
man.
It's a historic day today because this mega fab, is going to be the largest investment in the history, the largest single investment in the history of the great state of New York. So imagine
it's a huge facility.
That being right here, rebuilding and growing in the heart of Syracuse. That's fantastic. But let's make no mistake about it.
Up to the trees on the roof.
We're here today.
Oh yeah, climate change.
The core drive from President Trump. See, this groundbreaking only got scheduled at the end of December because the Trump administration cleared out all of the environmental and other things that tend to get in the way. I'm sure you all know the names of the bats that were in the way.
Yeah, and how dare Chuck Schumer try to take all the credit for this, because it's because of Democrats and like draconian EPA policies that prevent factories from being built. Probably a reason that caused so many factories to be run out of the United States to begin with.
This $100 billion plant that is going to change the lives of tens of thousands of people here. And that's the problem, is we had to get this done in 8 months.
A lot of people are going to move there, too.
Hard and close with the company to clear the path and effectively clear the trees that were in the way to allow this to happen.
Yeah, there you go. And guess what you can do? You could plant more trees. That's what you do. Trees don't take 1,000 years to grow. They'll grow back. All right, Rapid Response 47. Ambassador Greer, quote, if you look at the inflation numbers from last month, it shows that the price for vehicles went down. We're also seeing manufacturing wages up by 1,300% over the past year. We'll give this a quick watch. Going about 30
one
seconds.
thing to keep in mind are what are the trends looking like? And if you look at the inflation numbers from last month, it shows that the price for vehicles went down. So that's exactly the right direction. And the other thing to keep in mind is that wages are going up. And so with the president's trade policies, which are encouraging more production of vehicles right here in Ohio, right here in America, we're also seeing manufacturing wages up by $1,300 over the past year. So with the price of vehicles starting to get in the right trend, going the way down, and the wages going up, that's exactly the type of trends that we want to see to make sure that Americans can buy the cars that they're making.
Yeah, well, look, vehicles, the demand's gone down substantially in recent years. It's just because simply they just cost too much money. And an estimated 20% of people who have an auto loan right now, they're paying more than $1,000 a month for their vehicle. And the average number of individuals who owe more on their car than it's worth, otherwise known as negative equity, it's averaging over $7,000 worth. And that's not for everybody paying car payments. That's just the average of those who have negative equity on a vehicle. And what their answer is, the auto industry, they're like, well, let's just start writing 72-month loans. What about 84-month loans? 96-month loans. That way we can get the price down on their monthly payment. But in the long run, you're going to pay a hell of a lot more in interest. And plus, you're going to start hitting six-figure mileage with regard to your maintenance. You're going to have to start, tuning up your car and replacing a lot of stuff. And, cars these days, they're way more expensive to maintain than they used to be. So that's hence the reason why demand in vehicles is going down, and therefore the price is starting to come down. So, all right, so let's move on to the next thing. I think it might be automotive related. Yeah, okay. So countries want to invest and build on U.S. soil thanks to the president's tariff program incentivizing domestic production. It's from the U.S. Trade Representative, Jameson Greer, and we'll hear him out with this one. If it will play.
So many countries want to come and build here because President Trump has protected the American auto industry and all these workers here. I just heard today that 85% of auto workers voted for President Trump. This is the kind of situation
that's got to be a
where
big
we want to
change,
make sure
man.
that the jobs are protected, that we are building here, and that's why the Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans, everyone wants to come build their cars here in America. This is the consumer market.
Avoid the tariffs.
The tariffs protect the jobs here, and this is where they want to be. So I'm not surprised when I hear that kind of interest in investing in America.
Yeah, absolutely. And the average age of a vehicle on the road today is like 14 years old. It's crazy. People are hanging on to their cars now because they can't afford this shit. It's way too expensive. I want them to bring back, I don't know, crank windows, manual seat. When you grab the bar underneath the seat and you slide forward and back. I know they still make some cars that way, but like manual locks. How about a real key? Remember when we used to have real keys for vehicles? That'd be kind of nice. Or maybe they can manufacture vehicles without a SIM card built into them so they can't be constantly connected to the internet, downloading all your private information every time that you go over the speed limit, every time you take a turn faster than like 10 miles an hour. All that shit in one way or another, it's going to your insurance company some way or another. That's what they use to assess higher insurance rates. It's probably why car insurance has gone up so damn much. I mean, they say it's because, well, the cost of vehicles are more expensive these days. That's why we have to jack up insurance for everybody. And I'm sure that's probably an element of it, too. But anyway, this is from Secretary Sean Duffy from the U.S. Department of Transportation. Rapid response: a car is the American dream. A truck is freedom. We want to make sure everybody has a shot at the American dream with an American-made vehicle.
A car is the American dream. A truck is freedom in America. And we want to make sure that everyone has that shot at the American dream, being able to have a great vehicle, an American-made vehicle.
Well, yeah, okay, fine. American-made, that's fine. However, Jeep is not an American company anymore. It's an Italian company now because Stellantis, they purchased Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, and it's no longer an American-owned company. So, look, if they're building the cars in America, sure, that's fine. At least it helps with jobs and everything. But I know that's one reason why vehicles have gotten, or Jeeps in particular, have gone up insanely high in price. Like some of these Jeep Wranglers are like $80,000, $90,000 for a freaking Wrangler. It's insane. So anyway, I said realistically, Americans would love for these options to be optional. Dashboard screens, infotainment systems, the start-stop feature, the push start, the rear backup camera, cameras all over the car in general, lane assist, built-in SIM card, keyless entry, 45 plus miles per gallon. Many want real keys, crank windows, manual locks, bare basic stuff. Because, if you got rid of all that junk, then you wouldn't have to pay $50,000 for the car. Maybe we could finally get back to where, a vehicle would be like, I don't know, $15,000, $13,000. which, by the way, technically you can still purchase a brand new car today for under $20,000, and that's the Nissan Versa. And I know Nissan, they've had a terrible reputation in recent years, namely with their CVT transmissions. But what's somewhat nice about the Nissan Versa, if you're looking to buy a sub $20,000 brand new car, the Nissan Versa that costs under $20,000 is a manual transmission. So if you know how to drive a manual, you don't have to deal with that CVT transmission nonsense that Nissan contracted with, whatever that company was. That those transmissions, apparently they blow up all the time. I mean, they don't literally blow up, but apparently they're made like crap. And yeah, so you can still buy a car for under 20 grand. That's the only one I know of. Also, another one was the Mitsubishi Mirage, but they quit producing those. I think 2025 was the last year that they made those. So they're not making those anymore. All right, so this is from U.S. DOT Rapid Response. U.S. says that Canada will regret their decision to allow Chinese EVs into their market. Uh-oh. Look, man, I'm not going to drive a car that's made in China. Are you kidding? All right, Canada allows the import of 49,000 Chinese EVs. U.S. officials criticize the decision. U.S. officials cite tariffs as protection against Chinese cars. Trump is open to Chinese automakers building plants in the United States. Look, I wouldn't be open to that at all. I mean, come on, Trump. All right, Avon Lake, Ohio. Trump administration officials said on Friday that Canada would regret its decision to allow China to import 49,000 Chinese EVs and that those cars would not be allowed to enter the United States. That's a good thing. I think they'll look back at this decision and surely regret it to bring Chinese cars into their market, U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy said at an event with other government officials at a Ford factory in Ohio to tout efforts to make vehicles more affordable, which we just saw. Canada in 2024 imposed 100% tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles following similar U.S. duties, but its recent move to allow EVs has prompted alarm in the U.S. that it could help China get a broader foothold in North America, even as Washington takes an increasingly hard line on Canadian vehicles and parts. I don't even know why somebody in Canada would want to drive an EV. Isn't the range for EVs substantially reduced when it's cold outside? U.S. Trade Representative Jameson Greer said the limited number of vehicles would not impact American car companies exporting cars to Canada. Well, I mean, it will in some form or another. I mean, they're displacing 49,000 electric vehicles that, let's say, Tesla's not going to sell, especially when these Chinese vehicles are a lot cheaper. They're way cheaper than Tesla's, at least as far as I know. I don't expect that to disrupt American supply into Canada. Those cars are going to Canada. They're not coming here. The Canadian embassy in Washington did not immediately comment. Greer, in a separate CNBC interview, called Canada's decision problematic and added, "There's a reason why we don't sell a lot of Chinese cars in the United States. I don't think we sell any. It's because we have tariffs to protect American auto workers and Americans from those vehicles." Well, plus they're worried about spyware and other things like that. Under the new deal, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney said he expects China will lower tariffs on its canola seed by March 1st to a combined rate of about 15%. Is that what that's all about? They're going to let them import almost 50,000 vehicles because they want to get their canola seed oil. Anyway, Greer questioned that agreement. I think in the long run, they're not going to like having made that deal. Greer said rules adopted in January of 2025 on vehicles that are connected to the internet and navigation systems are a significant impediment to Chinese vehicles in the U.S. market. I think it would be hard for them to operate here, Greer said. There are rules and regulations in place in America about the cybersecurity of our vehicles and the systems that go into those. So I think it might be hard for the Chinese to comply with those kind of rules. That's why it's just another reason why I love driving a 90s car. The only car I have is a 1999 Mirage, and it's nice. It doesn't have any of this, internet nonsense. It has real gauges. It shifts manually. It's 100% mechanical. Like the young folks these days, they call them analog cars, it's so nice, man. It's so easy to work on. Don't have to worry about all this, electronic bull crap. Anyway, in contrast, President Donald Trump has said he would like Chinese automakers to come to the United States to build vehicles. However, lawmakers from both major U.S. parties have expressed strong opposition to Chinese vehicles as major U.S. automakers warn China poses a threat to the U.S. auto sector. Well, I'm frankly surprised that Democrats would actually, be in agreement with that. However, I'm sure a lot of the American factories are probably in blue districts, or maybe they are, maybe they're not. I don't know. Anyway, Ohio Senator Bernie Moreno, a Republican, said at the event he was opposed to Chinese vehicles coming into the U.S. and drew applause from the other government officials. "As long as I have air in my body, there will not be Chinese vehicles sold in the United States of America, period," Moreno said. And it looks like that's all we got for that one. So, I don't know. We'll see if Canada will live to regret it. They probably will, because I'm sure these Chinese vehicles don't have a lot of range. I did see there's a YouTube channel here on YouTube called the Chinese Observer, or is it China? I think it's China Observer. And it was a while ago. This was over the summer. They did a video on Chinese EVs because, of course, China Observer, they only do content that's based in China. So if you want to hear like the daily goings on of what's happening in China, whether if it's the economy or if it's society or if it's government affairs, they cover everything. They did one on Chinese EVs and how their range is not nearly as long as they're advertised. If you turn on the air conditioner, apparently, like it drops the range down by over 50% if you're just turning on the air conditioner. And it's just rife with a whole bunch of other problems. All right, so this one from the U.S. ambassador in Japan. I forgot his name. It's all in Japanese, so it's not going to help me out very much. But anyway, George Glass, right? Is that what? Ambassador to Japan, George Glass. Yeah, there you go. All right, so he says Mitsubishi Corporation is investing big in American energy. The company's $5.2 billion investment in the Haynesville Shale secures jobs in Louisiana and Texas while powering our economies with reliable and stable liquid natural gas. This latest step toward realizing the president's goal of American energy dominance strengthens both the U.S. and Japanese partnership and global energy security. So Mitsubishi, they're still around. They're not gone just yet, even though I know their automotive sector, it's suffering to some extent. I mean, they were a lot more popular like back in the day, thanks to the likes of the Fast and the Furious. All right, so I've got that linked. I'm not going to go through it, but it'll be linked there if you want to check it out. Trump moves to make tech giants pay for surging power costs, and this is coming from Bloomberg. And it starts, where does it start? Oh, yeah, that's right, Bloomberg. I forgot. Bloomberg's going to paywall me. Of course, Bloomberg likes to paywall me. They all want to paywall me. All right, let's give this a try. Probably still going to paywall me, isn't it? President Donald Trump and the government. Damn it. All right, well, let me see if I can do a workaround. Sometimes this will work. We'll just do a simple Google search. Looks like CNBC might have it. Trump wants tech companies to foot the bill for new power plants because of AI. Trump moves to have tech giants pay for surging power costs. It's probably AI related, I would imagine. Well, here we go from Forbes. Trump wants tech giants to pay for power plants as electricity costs surge. That sounds like that's probably going to be close enough. I don't think Forbes paywalls. I don't believe they do. Okay, so I guess I could just read through the key facts. I'm getting a little over on time. Oh, yeah, I'm hitting the 2-hour mark. So Trump and a group of governors from states, including Pennsylvania and Ohio, plan to push the nation's largest grid operator, PJM Interconnection, to hold an emergency power auction. The auction would require tech companies and hyperscalers to help pay for new power plants needed to meet surging electricity demand from AI data centers, which has led to cost increases for consumers. Tech firms could bid on 15-year contracts to support the construction of up to $15 billion in new generation capacity. Earlier this week, Microsoft committed to paying higher electricity fees and minimizing its water use to reduce its data centers' impact on consumers after calls from Trump. Friday morning, Elon Musk opaquely suggested that space could be the solution to the country's energy crisis. Oh, come on, Elon Musk. All right, whatever, dude. But, I mean, they're, like I've said many times before, they're starting to, well, they've already broken ground on the facility, but it should take about a year, I think, for them to build the facility in Tennessee to start manufacturing small modular nuclear reactors, which once they start manufacturing those, they're going to be producing up to 100 of them per year, and they could truck them by semi-truck to any location. And once they're set up and they're switched on, they could power up to 300,000 homes by one of these little small modular reactors. Little small modular nuclear reactor. They're going to start mass producing these things. Well, I don't know if mass produce is the right way to put it, but it's like assembly line style production for these things. And that's going to be, as long as it works as planned, that's going to be probably revolutionary if it actually works out. So anyway, from the U.S. Department of Energy, in case you missed it, NASA and the Department of Energy are partnering to develop and deploy a nuclear reactor on the moon within the next 4 years. America is committed to returning to the moon and fulfilling President Trump's vision for space development. I don't know the details on this nuclear reactor. Obviously, it's not going to look like the freaking nuclear plant from The Simpsons or anything like that. It's probably going to resemble, I would think, something similar to maybe like the nuclear reactors that they have like on aircraft carriers or nuclear submarines. I mean, if I were to take a wild stab in the dark, I would say that's probably going to be similar to what they're doing. Plus, we've already got a nuclear reactor on Mars. I don't know if anybody realizes that, but we do. It is the Mars Perseverance rover. So it's not like a standalone reactor. It's actually equipped onto the Perseverance rover that's rolling around on Mars. It landed back in 2021. It's powered by a multi-mission radioisotope, a thermoelectric generator, a type of nuclear battery. So, okay, fine. It's a nuclear battery. I mean, I don't know if that would be considered like a nuclear generator, but I mean, it's powering the rover. All right, so wait, did I link that? I don't know if I linked that or not, but there you go. Actually, here, let me just take a quick look. U.S. to build a nuclear reactor on the moon by 2030 because they're going to build a moon base, man. They're putting a moon base on the moon because they're going to get rid of the International Space Station. So they're going to decommission the ISS, International Space Station. It's going to eventually crash into the Earth after it's all, been taken care of. And they're actually constructing a new space station that's not going to orbit the Earth. It's going to orbit the moon. It's like straight out of sci-fi. I mean, like NASA's working on that right now. That's part of this whole Artemis mission thing. I mean, they're sending astronauts to orbit the moon here in about a month. And then about 2 years from now, they're going to send astronauts to land on the moon. And I don't know, that's going to be the Artemis 3 mission when they land on the moon. I believe they're just going to go for just to land on the moon, do some flexing and whatnot. And then I believe it's going to be Artemis 4 when they return to the moon. And that's when they're going to start setting up the moon base. So anyway, NASA and the U.S. Department of Energy working to develop and deploy a nuclear reactor on the moon's surface within the next 4 years, fulfilling one of President Trump's visions for space development, according to authorities. The agency signed a memorandum of understanding anticipating they will accomplish the ambitious goal of deploying nuclear reactors both on the moon and in orbit by the year 2030, the DOE and NASA announced on Tuesday. So yeah, the one that's going to be orbiting, what do they call that? They called it a gateway. Oh, I'm trying to remember. It's got the name Gateway in it. I want to say Gateway Station, but I think I've taken that out of the movie Aliens. But anyway, the orbiting space station that's going to be orbiting the moon, I'm assuming that's what they want to put this nuclear reactor into. Although I don't know why they wouldn't just equip it the same way they did with the International Space Station with the solar panels. But that would probably be a hell of a lot more costly, a lot more payloads having to be sent there, probably a lot more complicated. Instead of just launching a single, payload of a nuclear cell that would power the space station. I mean, it sounds like that might be a lot more cost effective. So the agencies, okay, so wait, did I already do that one? And understanding, anticipating they'll accomplish the ambitious goal by 2030. Yeah, I already did that. So the reactors will use a fission surface power system capable of producing safe and plentiful electrical power for future long lunar missions, regardless of sunlight or temperature, the department said. Why aren't we getting those for our houses yet? I mean, that's probably technology that's probably decades old. You'd think that we would have those set up in neighborhoods by now. Like every neighborhood has like this little like nuclear generator, and it like powers an entire neighborhood for practically free. Under President Trump's national space policy, America is committed to returning to the moon, building the infrastructure to stay, and making the investments required for the next giant leap to Mars and beyond, NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman said in a statement. Look, I don't think we're going beyond Mars. I think it's crazy that we're even going to Mars. I've been obsessed with astronomy since I was old enough to read. I hope in my lifetime they get to Mars, because that would be phenomenal to actually see that in my lifetime. As far as, just the accomplishment, be a great thing, a huge achievement for humans. As far as what's beyond Mars, just not feasible. It's not even remotely feasible. Not until we can start, figuring out like very, very, very fast speeds, and like maybe not quite the speed of light, but pretty damn close. And even if we did achieve the speed of light, it's going to take years to get to even the closest star system. It's 4 light years away. And, astronauts, we don't do too well in space. Our bodies break down, atrophied, and, our muscles, like our bones start to separate from our joints. It's not a good thing being weightless, although, if they did the whole, like, what was that movie? The 2001, the Space Odyssey. If they had some, like, artificial gravity, the thing spins around or something, maybe that will allow us to be in space for a longer period of time. But anyway, so, all right. So, quote, achieving this future requires harnessing nuclear power. This agreement enables closer collaboration between NASA and the Department of Energy to deliver the capabilities necessary to usher in the golden age of space exploration and discovery, Isaacman continued. NASA has been working for a few years to develop a nuclear reactor capable of powering one or several bases on the lunar surface, which would be established under its Artemis program, Space.com reported. Trump issued an executive order titled Ensuring American Space Superiority in December to begin constructing a permanent lunar surface base by 2030. I told you this is happening. It's actually happening. They're even talking about building a room that's going to be a greenhouse. They're going to build a freaking greenhouse on the moon, for crying out loud. All right, the order also called for at least one nuclear reactor to be deployed to the moon by that same year to achieve U.S. dominance in space. You know, it'd be hilarious if other countries like, of course, Russia, probably China, Japan, maybe, if these other countries, they start making launches up to the moon, because, you know, I'm sure, at least in theory, it's going to be just like the International Space Station, where other countries are welcome to dock with it as long as they've got the tech and everything all set up and approved and all that. I would assume that other countries would be able to have access to what we've got up there. But I find that kind of hilarious. Like, if we put up like 2 nuclear reactors up there on the moon, we use one for ourselves and the other we charge other countries like a monthly fee. We just send them a freaking electric bill every month. All right, anyway, so at least one nuclear reactor. And of course, we've got the astronaut with the flag from way back in the day, either 1969 or the early 70s. All right, history shows that when American science and innovation come together, from the Manhattan Project to the Apollo mission, our nation leads the world to reach new frontiers once thought impossible, U.S. Secretary of Energy Chris Wright said in a statement. This agreement continues that legacy. Thanks to President Trump's leadership and his America First space policy, the department is proud to work with NASA and the commercial space industry on what will be one of the greatest technical achievements in the history of nuclear energy and space exploration. You know, that's a far cry from Trump's first administration. I think Trump was trying to work to defund NASA. Maybe that was even in this administration. Maybe he said that earlier this year. I mean, I thought that Trump was looking to withhold a certain amount of funds from NASA, but obviously not anymore. At least not now. Okay, so this is the second to last one I got from NASA. We are just weeks away from Artemis 2, where we will send astronauts around the moon farther than any crew has traveled before. The mission's press kit is now available. You can check it out at go.nasa.gov. And what you need to know about NASA's Artemis 2 moon mission. And looks like just a brief summary. And, oh yeah, so they got another link here. So to learn more about Artemis, you can visit nasa.gov/Artemis. So NASA's weeks away from sending astronauts further than any crew has ever traveled with the agency's second mission in its Artemis campaign. The Artemis 2 press kit, which is this link, of course, it's now available with information on the mission, the astronauts, and other resources. Artemis 2 will be a momentous step forward for human space flight. This historic mission will send humans farther from the Earth than ever before and deliver the insights needed for us to return to the moon, with America at the helm, said NASA Administrator Jared Isaacman. Artemis 2 represents progress toward establishing a lasting lunar presence and sending Americans to Mars. I could not be more impressed by our NASA team and the Artemis 2 crew and wish them well, boldly forward. Under the Artemis campaign, NASA is returning humans to the moon for economic benefit, scientific discovery, and to prepare for crewed missions to Mars. And I'd have to check the map again, but I think they plan on setting up this base down on the south pole of the moon, like down near the bottom. At the very bottom of the moon. And NASA, just to finish this off, last one. Our NASA Artemis moon rocket is ready to roll. We're targeting no earlier than 7 a.m. Eastern on Saturday, January 17th, to begin the rocket's journey at NASA Kennedy from the Vehicle Assembly Building to Launch Pad 39B. And we've got a link for that too, and got that image. And that's going to be rolling out tomorrow morning. Actually, you know, depending on when you're listening to this, it might start exiting the building as you're listening to this video, because they're going to start bringing it out on Saturday, assuming that the weather is going to be favorable. So anyway, I think that's going to be all that I've got for this episode. And if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It'll mean a lot to me if you subscribe. And I will be dropping a new episode of The Swamp on Monday, as I cover the swamp Monday through Friday with everyone in the swamp, including the politicians, the bureaucrats, and the agencies. And also I post daily episodes on X, so feel free to comment there too if you'd like. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your night. Hope you have a fantastic weekend, and God bless America.